Alongside Alex and T-Bone on BK, you got BK and Ferrario here on 101 ESPN. Alex, after we left yesterday at the Chaim Bloom press conference, apparently that's when the good stuff actually happened.
Damn it!
Oh, man.
The good stuff happens when we leave.
Yep, that's not specific to this scenario, but it's also, at a party, Alex leaves, everybody else has better time after that.
The good stuff for me happens when I leave.
Well,
which is a good thing at those parties.
Yeah,
I'm losing my voice already, and I'm like 3 preseason games in.
So yesterday,
Quit crying about
Derek Gould had this in his story. Chaim Bloom was asked after we left. This is in the writers' session. They did kind of one-on-one scenarios, but it was a round table with the writers. Quote, this previous offseason, as the Cardinals sought to trim payroll and begin transitioning to Blues leadership, they did not sign a free agent to a major league contract until spring training. Bloom, however, said he plans to look into the free agent market to fill a need in the rotation, to add a veteran reliever for the bullpen, and possibly to add depth. This is also coming from Derek Gould's story, which is in the St. Louis Post-Dispatch today. President Bill DeWitt III said that if a giant chunk of the payroll is traded this offseason, he expects that to be spent on improving the roster in other areas. Quote, we're not looking to slash and burn here. We want to build on what we have. He then continues, Bill DeWitt III does, I think you can envision a scenario where we get back to the top third in revenue and in attendance and payroll and all of that at some point. We're not there right now. We'd love to get back there. We've been there before, end quote. Alex, this was one of my big questions going into the offseason. How are the Cardinals going to approach this thing? Is it truly just like hey, get rid of every ounce of payroll that we have on our books right now, and then we'll start building back up in the next couple of seasons? Or are they willing to spend a little bit to add pieces to this roster that maybe become assets to you at the trade deadline? Or maybe you surprise and you become next year's version of the Reds, who are in the midst of retool, rebuild, whatever you want to call it. And no, nobody believes in this team. Look at last night as the perfect example as to why. But they snuck into the playoffs. They had this opportunity for their young guys to get a chance, a taste at what October baseball is like. You could be that next year. I mean, it's obviously not a particularly high bar to clear in the National League right now. What did you make of the comments that we heard from Chaim Bloom and some of the reporting that came out after we left yesterday?
Yeah, I mean, what I make of it is, okay, so the Cardinals are handling this differently than years past. This isn't just going to be another year of running it back with the same roster and seeing what happens. It's taking chances on guys that maybe they see some upside with. This goes into the evaluating talent category that we talked so much about yesterday after the Bloom press conference. Like you guys brought up Dustin May in the past. That is the perfect situation to where if they decide to go down that path to where years past, they're not going to go spend the money on Dustin May. Even if he's $10 million, which I think that might be too steep for him. But even if he's $10 million, the Cardinals of years past would be like, well, what's the point of that? Because we don't think he's very good. Not sure we can fix him, and we're just going to move on from him. Doesn't make sense for us. Let's stick with what we've got, or let's go to the bargain bin. To where now it's, hey, we see upside here. Let's go attach this to our team. Maybe we could get the best out of him for 4 months. Maybe it puts us in a playoff spot. Or maybe it brings us assets that helps us down the road. Like, that was the biggest thing that Bloom talked about yesterday of, like, the Cardinals want to make sure that what they're bringing in now helps them down the road. Sometimes you're going to take chances and it's going to fail. Sometimes you might click something and it turns into something that really sets your team up. So I don't know if I'm looking at this team anymore of being the bottom dweller in the NL Central and just selling everything possible to go get young AA guys. Now I'm kind of wondering if this team might be slightly competitive, and if it doesn't work out, or if teams are willing to give up a king's ransom for something that works well for you, then the Cardinals can just flip them and build more assets for their future.
They feel more opportunistic going into the offseason than I felt like they were going to be.
Hot damn, we made it.
Yeah, we
made it, ladies and gentlemen.
See, I had to
been so great.
calm down, because I had to calm myself down again when I saw the comments. Like, let's not get ahead of ourselves. This is all just words.
I'm ready. I'm bought back
When
in.
have they ever lied?
Stop it. This is all just words, because Chaim's going to have to go to the DeWitts and say, hey, found this guy. Oh, cut salary first.
But the DeWitt said that. Well, the DeWitt III said.
Words.
Yeah. Action.
I'm sorry.
I
should give
So
myself
negative.
more opportunity.
So
I'm not
negative.
trying
See,
to
this
be
is what we're
mean.
talking about you at the party, right?
Is this why I leave early so people could talk ish?
Yes.
I'm not trying to be. I just want to make sure we don't get our hopes up. BK's getting way too excited. He's like a sad puppy dog. He's like a sad bird that his wings clipped. You don't want to see him upset.
Yeah, see, but I actually believe in this time around, right? Because this was hey, if we can cut salary here, then yeah, we will reinvest it. Like that was it's hard to kind of take that word and twist it to make it mean something else. Like when they did hey, payroll's going up. And then it was, well, wait, payroll didn't go. Well, yeah, it did. Look at all the money we gave that's deferred in Wainwright's contract. Oh, so we found a loophole. Can't really find a loophole in this comment. And
Unless they have to pay people to take players off of their roster.
Yeah,
And then
but
it's like,
even
well,
then,
we're paying these guys to go away.
It's really Arenado. And Arenado's the only one that you have to do that
You're not spending more. There's no way to spend more than what they're already guaranteed to receive next year. If you trade Arenado and or Sonny Gray, you will be offloading some amount of money. There's no way around it. And they also said, hey, we're not releasing Nolan Arenado. There's no scenario where we are going to do that, which, we'll see how much you believe in that. I think they're probably telling the truth. I don't think that's something that this ownership group is going to do to a future Hall of Famer. I don't think they're going to need to. I think there's going to be somebody that's willing to take on some amount of that salary, even if it's not a ton. So I don't know how much that comment from Chaim Bloom mattered yesterday. It's also about leverage. There's no reason to say that you're willing to if you're trying to trade him in the offseason. But, man, it made me a little excited because it gives me optimism. They're going to try stuff. They're going to do things that are interesting and different. And maybe they go out there, and opportunistic is a great word to use for this, T-Bone. I don't want people to get overly excited, though, because of my optimism and say, oh, they're going to go sign, the top-end free agents. Framber Valdez, Zach Gallen. No, let's talk realistic here. Nick Martinez, Andrew Heaney, Tyler Malley. Like, these are the names maybe we get acquainted to. But at least it's different. At least there's some level of upside to these pitchers, as opposed to running it back with the same guys next year or forcing some of your young guys into positions that they're not yet prepared to pitch in. I think that is a really important thing for this team, and I do like that they're at least willing to take that plunge. And
as you've brought up before, not forcing what your return has to be in some moves that you ultimately make with roster position players too, right? Because if you are opportunistic, you do have some payroll flexibility. If you're able to move on from some contracts, you now can go out and sign some of those names that you brought up, right? The Martin Perez's, those guys of the world, and not just be stuck with, okay, well, when we trade or if we decide to trade Lars Nootbaar or Brendan Donovan, we have to get a major league starter back. Like, it is a must. No, now you can actually say, okay, what are our paths, right? We don't have just one path when we're exploring the trade market. We have multiple.
Exactly.
Okay, so maybe we like this free agent. Let's get him locked into a $7 million deal on 1 year. It's an upside play. It's someone that we can bring in here. It fills innings for us. We don't rush a young guy. And then we can have a path of, hey, actually, we really like this prospect, and we can now go and acquire him in exchange for Lars Nootbaar that we wouldn't have been able to do if we couldn't sign a free agent because we had to get innings in our rotation.
And this goes back to what Chaim Bloom said yesterday, which is everything will be about the long-term goal. So they may sign somebody to a short-term contract, and you look at that and you're like, I don't really see how this is helping you with that long-term goal in mind, but everything is connected. That signing, let's call it Nick Martinez, just as a placeholder here, which doesn't get anybody overly excited, but it's better than what you have internally right now. You sign Nick Martinez, 1 year, $12 million, whatever it might be. Well, that doesn't help long-term. Well, maybe not in and of itself, but that move allows you to get a better return of a AA pitcher for Lars Nootbaar. And then maybe at the trade deadline, you end up getting another AA pitcher for Nick Martinez because somebody needed a swingman. Basically the equivalent of what you were able to get this year for Steven Matz. You get that next year for Nick Martinez. And so it all continues to add dominoes to the table. And eventually, as you knock them all over, you hope that it gets you to where you want to go.
And you yell bingo. That's how the game works, right? I would imagine.
I've heard that before.
So you guys said something that I think is why I would be getting excited about this, or at least optimistic. New faces. Because for the last however many years, it's just been the same freaking guys. Even when they go to free agency, it's a guy that was here 10 years ago that's back for round 2. So
no Miles Michaelis, no Steven Matz, please, we're good.
Like, we don't have to keep trying to jam a square peg into a round hole. But the other side to this coin is you got to hope the free agent's willing to take that chance.
That's true.
Because this team is not an ideal, even if we're optimistic. From the outside looking in, if I'm a free agent and you give me Team A and Team B, you may say it's not a rebuild, but I don't expect you to be a playoff team. And if another team's willing to give me a shot where I am a playoff team, that's going to be the hard part for the Cardinals. And I just don't know. I don't know what the leverage is for Chaim Bloom when he's talking to these guys. If you can add more money to it to make them come in. The CBA negotiations, maybe that makes some things a little bit more interesting of players just wanting a one-year deal versus multi-year. That's the other hiccup I have in this. It's exciting, but I do have to wonder, there's two sides to this, and the player has to want to come to St. Louis just as much as St. Louis wants to give that player the chance.
The other thing that Bloom mentioned yesterday in his conversations with the writers, again, this comes from Derek Gould's story, quote, as far as cash being a lever on the trade front for Nolan Arenado, that should never be off the table. Obviously, you'd prefer not to do that, but you could end up in a situation where adding cash to make a preferred deal work just makes some sense. Hallelujah. Hallelujah, ladies and gentlemen. It's just words right now. I understand that,
Sorry,
Alex.
Man. I'm just negative,
but
Nancy.
It is the kind of thing that you want to hear. That is necessary. Yes, you're going to have to throw money into the deal in order to get something of significance and even just something in return for Nolan
like payroll
Arenado.
Flexibility.
Yeah, exactly. And then he was asked about Sonny Gray. Quote, with Sonny, the situation is different in that we do have a clear fit for him here. He's enjoyed playing here. He's said some very complimentary things to me about his time with the organization. He's also recognizing where we're headed. I think he'll be perfectly happy and a good teammate and contributor if he's here. But we're going to see what's out there. And if something is out there that makes some sense for us, that furthers our goals, that he also wants to do, then we'll go ahead and explore it. Perfect. Sounds great. That is basically where I'm at, where it's like, hey, you don't just get rid of Sonny Gray for no reason. I understand he might be open or prefer to go elsewhere. He's still under contract for a year at $35 million. You have some need in the rotation right now, a lot of need in the rotation right now, and Sonny's probably the best dude to do that job for you. So I don't think it's the worst thing for him to be back next year, for you to run it back with him. Hopefully, he's able to have a very good first half to the season. And then at the trade deadline, if there's an opportunity that makes sense for both sides, that's where I would probably try to trade him. Somebody overwhelms you this offseason. The Giants say, hey, we're getting overly aggressive. And Sonny says, I would love to play in San Francisco. Cool. Make the deal. But barring something like that, I'm totally fine with Sonny Gray being back here next year. I don't think that's a bad thing for the Cardinals. I think that could be a good thing for them.
Yeah, I mean, you want somebody that's able to eat innings, and I mean, you don't have to rush your younger players. So if the free agency doesn't work out, you still have a Sonny Gray. That one's not as bad. It's the Nolan Arenado one that it's just like, I'm glad he said that, because that means the motivation is this guy is not going to be back. And I hate saying it because I loved Arenado when they acquired him, but he can't be back. And if the Cardinals have that mindset, that tells me that Chaim and the DeWitts have at least had the conversation. Or at least you hope, because they didn't talk payroll before they had the press conference.
They've had that conversation. We don't know what payroll is yet.
Like, those are two different players for me. Like, Arenado, you need to be gone. Sonny Gray, if you're here, that only helps the Cardinals. It's just a matter of, do you want to be here and what's the attitude? But I would imagine he's a professional and he can handle that.
Coming up in 15 minutes, one of the writers in that meeting was Katie Wu. She's going to join us here on the show to recap what her discussion was like with Chaim Bloom, what her first impression was as Chaim Bloom made his introductory press conference yesterday with the St. Louis media. With Alex and T-Bone, I'm BK. 314-399-9646. That's the Air Comfort Service text line to get involved in the show. But coming up next, Alex thinks that the St. Louis Blues roster is basically set at this point. We have not discussed what he means by that. Who does he think is making it? We'll talk about that next year on 101 ESPN. Alongside Alex Ferrario, I'm Brandon Kiley for our friends over at Underdog. Alex, this is the place that you need to be playing all football season long and all playoffs long for Major League Baseball. I've got 3 different plays that I like for tonight on my ticket. I've got Jose Ramirez, higher than 1.5 total bases. I've got Brian Bayo, lower than 4.5 strikeouts. And I've got Shohei Ohtani, who was amazing last night, higher than 2.5 hits, runs, and RBIs. I'm putting that together over on the Underdog app. It pays 5-1. Don't forget, though, they've got the promos over there, the potential gimme bets. They've got a bunch of stuff offered all the time on the Underdog app, so check it out today.
BK just laid out how easy Underdog is to use. You choose your favorite players going higher or lower, stats that you like. You get your entries right, and you could win up to 5,000 times your cash. So download the Underdog app today, sign up with promo code BKO, and score $100 in bonus funds on or entries when you play your first $5. Again, $100 in bonus funds or entries when you play your first $5. That's promo code BKO. Underdog, make plays, win money. Must be 18 plus and present in Missouri. Terms apply. See assets.underdogfantasy.com/web/play and get terms _DFS_.html for details. Concerned with your play, call 1-800-GAMBLER or visit www.ncpgambling.org.
Alongside Alex and T-Bone on BK, Alex thinks that the Blues roster is set at this point in time. Now, we have not talked about this on or off air, but Alex, coming out of last night's game, what changed for you?
Watching the guys that were fighting to take one of those spots, not take it. I'm watching these games, and now we've seen, I think it's 3 games for Dalibor Dvorsky. I think it's 2 now for Otto Stenberg, and then you've gotten 3 with Joseph, 3 with Texier, and 2 with Lucic. So to me, after watching that last night, I think Dvorsky, Stenberg, Kaskamaki, we like what the potential is, but you're going back to the AHL. And now it comes down to the 2 roster spots because, as we all agree, Oskar Sundqvist is making this team. They're carrying 14 forwards and 7 defensemen. Comes down to 2 spots. Part of the reasoning in my thinking with this is I don't like Nick Bjugstad as a center. I don't think you are utilizing him to the best of his ability as a 6'6" guy who could be a 20-goal scorer. So I think your right wing on the third line has been answered by Nick Bjugstad. And now you're talking about fourth-line players. You're talking about Walker and Toropchenko, who are givens. Probably more times than not, you're seeing Oskar Sundqvist. Yep. So to me, this roster comes down to 2 of the 3 guys, Joseph, Texier, and Lucic. And I think Joseph's one of those guys. He looked good in Columbus. He didn't stick out to me in that game yesterday, but he's also playing a position he has been admittedly not comfortable with at the center spot. Now, Jim Montgomery said, I want these guys to be versatile. It's your best chance to play. Joseph's willing to do that. He's a penalty killer. You could play him on a third line. You could play him on a fourth line. He's dual threat. And I think your final guy is Milan Lucic. I don't think it's Texier.
Oh, interesting.
Texier last night, in my opinion, had a bad game. There was a lot of endless puck possessions. He takes it, he circles around the offensive zone, he passes it to nobody, it's down the other way. The second goal that was scored was started because of a bad line change by Alex Texier. Jim Montgomery has made an emphasis on you either need to get better as camp goes on, or if you get worse as camp goes on, it's going to be a hard spot for you to make on this roster. I don't know if Milan Lucic was impressive at all last night. Frankly, it didn't really do much for me. Here was my reasoning with Lucic, though. Everybody's biggest question is, can he keep up with the pace of the NHL? He didn't look slow last night. He looked slow, but in the sense of a 37-year-old fourth-line player. Guys, Radek Faksa was the slowest player on the team last year, and he was fine. Lucic tied the team in hits with 5. He was aggressive on the forecheck. He tried to keep possession. That line just had no chemistry. So I think Joseph's your 13th forward. I think he's the guy that comes in and out when Sundqvist needs some rest, can play third line, can play fourth line, and Milan Lucic is going to be your 14th forward. 1, because I think the team wants him to make this roster, and 2, he's the prototypical 14th forward, and you hope you can sneak Texier through waivers, and he goes down to the minors and use him call-ups if you need it.
So this is interesting. It's not the way that I thought you were going to go, and I like that. I think this decision is about Texier as much as it is about Lucic. Because I think if you're going this direction, you have to be okay with the possibility that somebody picks up Texier. I don't know if they will or not, but it's possible Texier is the kind of player that would get picked up in waivers. And if you're okay with losing him, if you just see there's very little value here, there's not a ton of upside, we're comfortable with whether it's Stenberg or Dvorsky being that next guy up in the event that we need somebody in our top 9 down the road. If you're comfortable with that, or if you're comfortable with Joseph being that player, then I think you make the move. But I don't have enough information on that based upon preseason. I think that's more an internal discussion. I don't, this is bad opinion maybe, I don't really care either way. It doesn't make, it's not a needle-moving decision to me.
No, you're right.
So if Lucic is somebody that they want that for 20 games, the physicality that he brings, the veteran presence that he brings inside of the locker room, like if that's really valuable to them, cool, then go for it. If they view Texier with the potential of being, 10 to 15 goal scorer at the NHL level, if that holds more value to them, cool. I just think the stakes are incredibly low with either of these two decisions.
You want the line combinations?
Yeah, let's do it.
Pavel Buchnevich, Thomas Snuggerud.
Cool.
Holloway, Suter, Kyrou, which, by the way, looked awesome last night.
I think that's your line.
Yeah.
I think they made the decision. I think it is that as the second line right now.
We'll get to that soon, but impressive. Joseph is with Shannon Bukestad.
Okay.
Neighbors is not skating, which tells you Neighbors is staying there with Shannon Bukestad. So welcome to your third line. Your fourth line, Lucic, Sundqvist, Walker. Toropchenko and Texier, they're not skating on the ice. Toropchenko fell and hit his head on the board, so I'm assuming he's not healthy, but Toropchenko's in the Lucic's spot, Sundqvist and Walker, that's your fourth line. So to me, it's Lucic and Texier fighting for one spot. And I personally believe Lucic is going to have that one. And Joseph playing on that third line tells you he's probably the number one guy that's making this roster, the 13th forward. And it comes down to Lucic and Texier. And honestly, I think they can sneak Texier through waivers. Because if you wait until before the rosters need to be set, teams that it would acquire Texier off of waivers have to put him on their NHL roster. They can't take him and then store him in the AHL. You'll sneak him through, and then you'll get on with it. You'll move forward with it. But I think those line combinations are very telling for me of what it's going to look like.
He's Alex Ferrario. That's Tanner Hendrickson. I'm Brandon Kiley. Blues back in action coming up tomorrow against the Senators. Pre-game coverage with Alex Ferrario begins at 6 o'clock. Puck drop for that one tomorrow right here in your home of the Blues, 101 ESPN at 7. Do you think these will be the lines that we see tomorrow?
Yeah,
Alex?
I think you're going to see an NHL line with Binnington in net. Yeah, I think you're going to see all of the normal forwards play. And then what will be interesting is I don't know what Saturday is going to look like because typically they don't travel for that final preseason game, a lot of your NHL players. But if you're Jim Montgomery, I think you want some chemistry going into it.
The reason I asked, that's a huge opportunity for Lucic in the event that they are going to play these lines because that's his chance to make this roster. Mm-hmm. And I'm very curious to see what that looks like. It's also a big opportunity for Matthew Joseph. I don't think that there's a way for him to earn that spot in the third line, but he could continue to establish, all right, yes, he's no doubt about it, definitely the 13th forward right now. He has so much flexibility, whether it be the ability to, in a pinch, play the center position.
And that's the flexibility they want.
Or play on a third or fourth line role. Whatever you need him to do, it seems like he can play in any capacity. That's something Texier has not shown the ability to do thus far, and I do think that gives Joseph the leg up for that spot.
I totally agree with you, and this will be a good opportunity to play with those guys. I'll give you one more, too, and then we'll get to Katie on the other side. I don't think Kessel's making this roster. I think Hunter Skinner's going to make it.
Really?
Yeah, Hunter Skinner last night, a couple of players were talking about how aggressive he is and how Kessel had a bad night last night. Turned the puck over a couple of times. One led to the goal, that empty net goal that put it out of reach. I'm not so sure that Kessel is a certain, and he's not skating with this group. Now, Skinner's not either, but I think that's another one that may surprise some people if you see Kessel go on waivers before the start of the season.
I wonder, is Skinner a guy that's waivers exempt?
I don't know.
Looks like he's got a two-way deal, so that might be a situation where they keep Kessel, but in the event that there was actually an injury, maybe Skinner's the one that gets called up and goes into the lineup. So he is effectively your seventh forward, but to play the roster manipulation game, you keep Kessel, send Skinner down, and you're able to keep both within the organization. That could be another way that this goes. even though you may actually be right, Alex, in that he is the guy that gets those bigger opportunities than what Matt Kessel is.
Could absolutely be that way. A couple of guys were talking about him, and I thought he was a lot more impressive than most of those other defensemen in the game last night.
Coming up in 15 minutes, we'll get into questions and answers. 314-399-9646 is the Air Comfort Service text line to get involved in the show. Katie Woo, Cardinals insider for The Athletic, joins us next to give her thoughts on the first press conference and the first roundtable discussion with Chaim Bloom. Katie Woo next year on 101 ESPN.
Alex Ferrario with you to tell you about my friends out at Classic Air Care, the company that is taking care of your old HVAC system, or maybe you got a newer one and you want to make sure that it gets you the length of time that you expected when you purchased it. So Classic Air Care, the company that has been doing this since 1926 and making sure that you're getting the best maintenance care for your HVAC system. And look, now that we are entering into that fall weather, you're going to be starting to turn on those furnaces, and it's the best way to avoid breakdowns by using their annual maintenance program. I've been a part of it since 2016. Twice a year, you have them come out, do the tune-up, make sure it's good to go, and then that maintenance is there for you the entire year. And if issues pop up with your HVAC system, your furnace, your AC, you get priority scheduling with Classic Air Care for them to come out. They've got 100 vans out on the road. That means they're going to get to you within 24 hours, which is so good to have that timely customer service and the knowledgeable technicians that come out and can answer any questions you may have. Give them a call today. Schedule online. Again, the maintenance agreement is there for your benefit. That's Classic Air Care and classicaircare.com.
Tanner Hendrickson here with a Sports Center update driven by Johnny Londoff Chevrolet and Johnny Londoff Autoplex. Yesterday, the wild card round started in Major League Baseball and will continue today as Game 2 of the wild card series will get underway today at 12 o'clock when Tigers visit the Guardians. And tonight here on 101 ESPN, you can hear Game 2 between the Dodgers and the Reds. We'll have pregame coverage starting at 7:30 with first pitch at 8 o'clock. The Sports Center update is driven by Johnny Londoff Chevrolet and Johnny Londoff Autoplex. SEMALondoff.com. Chevy, together we drive. Are you kidding me?
Alongside Alex and T-Bone on BK, happy to go out to the Callier and Thompson hotline. I feel like we just did this, but now we've got some updated information to discuss with our friend Katie Woo, Cardinals insider for The Athletic. You can always follow her great work on Twitter as well, at Katie J. Woo. Katie, appreciate the time. Good to see you yesterday out there at Busch Stadium. How you doing this morning?
I am well, guys. I feel so lucky to do this twice in a week. So obviously something special must be going on if that's the case.
Yeah, Chaim Bloom actually talked. It was great. We've been talking about it all year long. We were wondering, hey, when are we going to talk to this guy? Is he even real? Is he going to come beyond the shadowy league figures? And he has. He's now out front for the St. Louis Cardinals as their president of baseball operations. Katie, not only with the press conference, which we were able to discuss a lot yesterday on the show, but also in kind of the breakout session that he had with you guys as writers yesterday, which I think I read was about an hour long. What was your first impression of the direction that Chaim Bloom plans to take this thing?
Yeah, it was really honestly refreshing to sit down. It was about an hour-long session with Chaim and the rest of the traveling beat writers. And it was all on the record and all about, maybe the questions that we had, because there were many, as you can imagine, not being able to talk to him for the last year or so publicly, that wouldn't fit in the press conference. So we got to expand a lot more on what he thought of certain players like Jordan Walker, Nolan Gorman seasons, his plans for Nolan Arenado and Sonny Gray, what he plans to do with the front office, the coaching staff, just kind of a more expansive look, and I'm sure we'll get into all of that. But my main takeaway of what he was saying was just how clearly and effectively he was communicating these things. If there's one thing that I think Cardinals fans can look forward to, because as we sit here on October 1st, clearly no organization is even aware of what the trade market and free agent market looks like at this point. It's that I feel like there was a much more honest and clear messaging. I felt that at the press conference. I definitely felt that at the breakout session. And we should know what to expect big picture, right? We don't know who Chaim wants to trade or, what payroll is going to look like, all of those things. We don't know that yet, right? But we do know that he has a vision for the long-term outlook of this organization, what his definition of contending and competing is, and what he wants the Cardinals to do. And that, they're not going to, he stopped short of using the word rebuild, I think, because there's just that natural negative connotation with that word. But it is very much going to be a long-term focus where they could make short-term sacrifices, and I believe that's what he said exactly, in order to make sure they stick to their mission of making sure the St. Louis Cardinals are back to being perennial contenders for the long-term future. So fans at least know the direction of where this organization is going. And I'm sure as the offseason continues to transpire, we'll have more ideas of what the offseason roster moves look like.
Yeah, well, and I mean, for me, Katie, personally, it was just words, but it did sound like he was very confident in himself, which is something that I felt like was a refreshing thing to see. But it also sounds like they're not expecting this to look like a typical rebuilding team next year, a team that just gets rid of everyone and lucky to win 60 games. It sounds like they're still at least wanting to remain competitive next year. It's just a different type of competitiveness.
Exactly. And I think that's why the word rebuild was kind of chosen to not use, even though if you ask around the organization, it's by definition it is. And the Cardinals have never advertised that they were going to tear down completely, and they don't need to. I mean, you do have, we talked about this all season, that core of complementary or supplementary players to build around. What they're lacking is pitching and a true star. And that's going to take time to develop because, as we heard from ownership as well, they're going to stick to being a draft and development club. You kind of have to when you are in a mid-market team like the Cardinals and consistently going against payrolls of the Dodgers, of the New York teams, of Philadelphia, and things like that. So, no, they're not. It's not a true teardown. It doesn't need to be. They're going to try to compete and win every game, but they are okay for the next couple of seasons, for their competitive window to be a little bit down, in order to make sure that when this organization is fully firing on all cylinders and where they need to be, that they're not just contending for a wild card appearance. They're contending for the division at the minimum. Back to when the Cardinals were the St. Louis Cardinals in the 2010s, that's what they want this to look like. I think fans have grown very tired of building an 85 to 88 win team, hoping to win on the margins and sneak in as a 6 seed and get hot. I don't think that is what the St. Louis Cardinals should be defining competitive as. I think they are a much better franchise to hold themselves to that standard. And I think this new front office feels that exact same way. So that's probably the mentality that you're going to see, at least in 2026, maybe 2027, as they continue to develop talent and increase their talent base. But in the next couple of years, when they really redefine their pitching and they've added the things that they need to see, you're going to go see, in a perfect world, the Cardinals contending back on top of the NL Central and for a legitimate spot in the playoffs, not just hoping to get in and get hot.
Katie, one of the big questions that I had going into this offseason was, how are the Cardinals going to approach this in the immediate future? Because I think the long-term plan is pretty clear. The immediate future was a little less so for me. And it sounds as though he gave some clarity in that roundtable with the writers on especially what they're planning to do with the pitching side of things and the rotation. Can you give us some insight on what your understanding is on how the Cardinals are going to approach that rotation this offseason? Are they open to adding from free agency, for example, for that rotation?
Yeah, new front office, same problem. They have no pitching, but they will address that. We already heard a little bit of their changes here with Kyle Leahy, right? The way that I think the front office is looking at this right now, it's kind of a combination of both. And again, we're going to have much more clarity on what this looks like once the offseason actually begins in November. But right now, the Cardinals know they have to add pitching. That's why they're going to turn Kyle Leahy and have him have the opportunity to come in as a starter. They're almost the exact same way that they treated Matthew Liberatore last spring is how they're going to treat Kyle Leahy next spring. If he takes the opportunity and runs with it, okay, cool. They found an internal starting pitching option. And I think that's a good option for Kyle Leahy as well. I think he can do it. Now, this is where everything is hypothetical because we just don't know. They will peruse the free agent market, but they might not need to add a starter if they can trade away somebody else to get another starter, right? Or, maybe they could trade something or they trade players, and we don't know which trades yet. We don't know who's on the block, who's prioritized over who. They trade someone, they get somebody else, and it opens the door in free agency to spend a little bit of money to add a starting pitcher. They're going to address the rotation. They have to. They are not going to roll out a rotation of McGreevy, Libby, Leahy, and Palante and just have 4 guys. Okay, that's not going to happen. They're also, and I thought this was the most telling part of the writer session in terms of pitching development, they're not going to rush up guys out of need. So you have guys that are super exciting, Quinn Matthews, Tink Hence, obviously Takeo Roby with Tommy John is no longer in that box. Liam Doyle will be an exciting arm to watch. The worst thing this organization can do is rush those prospects up through crucial development phases and bring them to the big leagues out of need. They're not going to do that. And historically, Chaim Bloom has always operated in a way where especially pitchers are maybe in the minors arguably too long in order to make sure that they are good to go at the major league level. So, yeah, they'll look to add. They might not have to add via free agency because there will be moves addressing the 40-man roster. He said that, where they could trade, and maybe they're acquiring starting pitching in a return. Maybe it's, young, formidable arms, or maybe it's a veteran durability option. In a perfect world, this is my speculation, you can trade one of the 4 lefties that we've talked about before in Donovan, Burleson, Nootbaar, or Gorman, and maybe you're bringing in some pitching depth there. And if you need to go out and sign a 1-year depth starter, you can do that. Is that how I expect the Cardinals to operate in their true competitive window in the next couple of years? No, but for this season, as more of a bridge, we will not use the word transition, more of a bridge season, that's what I'm expecting.
On the position player side, Katie, I think one of the few guys that Cardinals fans, they hear his name and they get kind of up in arms about is Jordan Walker. Mm-hmm. And it sounds like Chaim Bloom still has that optimistic mindset about the young outfielder.
And he should. I know it's been frustrating. This year especially, you would have really hoped Jordan took some steps forward. We know there were questions about whether he was sticking to the approach or the necessary adjustments, and Chaim alluded to that as well, said that it's very, very hard for a player to make these mid-season adjustments. So this offseason is going to be super pivotal for him as he continues to work on that without the pressure of a game day environment. Jordan Walker is 23 years old. He is so young. That talent is so high. I think the Cardinals would be making a massive mistake if they pivot away from him this offseason. Now, if he has the entire offseason to go and actually work on his commitment to the approach, work on these adjustments, there will be a lot of personnel going to Jordan this year to work with him. Side tangent, the Cardinals actually are not permitted to work out in Jupiter this spring as they're undergoing major renovations. So how they work with players is going to look different in terms of location. But the organization has definitely identified Jordan Walker as someone that they're going to spend a lot of time with. You give him next year to try and prove it, right? Because of the talent, because of the age, because he'll have a full season with a new front office and a new system to kind of learn what they need him to do instead of trying to do it on the fly. And then if it doesn't work out in 2026, you can make a real decision about his future. But if I'm the front office, if I'm the St. Louis Cardinals, I'm still high on Jordan Walker regardless of the production because the ceiling is still there.
Katie, is there anything else we need to know about what Chaim Bloom had to say to you guys in that reporters roundtable yesterday?
I think it's going to be slow at first, obviously. There will be some staff changes. The big thing that I took away from is when he says staff changes, it's definitely more of addition rather than subtraction. He referenced the word continuity a lot because he expects that there will be a lot of the same people coming back, but maybe in different roles or, doing different things. We know that Ollie Marmol is being brought back in 2026 as the manager. Less of a surprise there, kind of expected that. We'll have more clarity about the coaching staff as well, but it doesn't seem like any huge, significant subtractions are on the way. There's always a chance for a couple, but I think this organization's priority as they focus on staff changes in October and November, and we will have some shortly, I do think so, will be on adding positions. Similar to what the Cardinals did with player development last year with Chaim Bloom adding Rob Cerfolio and all the instructors they added in there. I think other areas of the front office and the organization in general are going to continue to see additions, including player development still. And I think when Bill DeWitt Jr. said that he was going to give Chaim the resources to do what he wants, that had less to do with payroll for the major league roster and more to do with giving him the resources to continue adding critical positions to this organization so that they avoid the player development downfall of 2024, so that they are more equipped to build this and run it forward. It's going to take a lot of personnel and staff, and that's what I think we're going to see first off.
All right, Katie, we'll get you out of here on this, and we appreciate the time as always. Do you get the sense that this is going to feel different for fans?
Maybe not at first. Maybe not at first because ultimately what fans are looking for is on-change, on-field results, right? I'm not sure if we're going to see that necessarily with the roster, and I think it's going to be really hard to get fans on board if you're trading a Hall of Fame third baseman or your ace of the staff or, maybe a fan favorite such as Brendan Donovan, right? I'm not saying the Cardinals are going to do that, but I certainly think those options are on the table. However, eventually, and this is where I think the knowledge of the Cardinals fan base is really going to help this fan base understand. You can look to the minor league systems and see the increase in staff and the increase of technology. And I think the fan base will understand that those things have to happen first before things in the major league roster really actually produce box score results. So on the field, honestly, in my way too early predictions for 2026, I'm sensing a season similar to this one in terms of the win-loss record, maybe right around 500. But I do think that there will be steps back in terms of roster additions like stars. But I think we all know what the long-term goal is here, and it's kind of what the organization has to do to get them there.
Looking forward to seeing what they have to do this offseason. Katie, we appreciate the time as always. Thanks so much for hopping on with us today, being able to break down some of what you were able to learn yesterday from Chaim Bloom. We'll talk with you again soon.
You got it, guys. Thanks so much.
Appreciate you. It's Katie Wu joining us here on 101 ESPN. Appreciate her time as always. Do you think it's going to feel different early on, Alex?
No. I don't. I think you're going to.
That doesn't mean it won't eventually.
Yeah,
but
no.
I'm curious early on how people are feeling.
And I said this yesterday. I'm still going to give him a chance rather than just automatically get upset about this because it's somebody new, and I want to see what this progress looks like. But unless they strike gold and a piece that they acquire that is just fast tracked to the major league, I think it's going to. I think it might look different because you see guys traded that typically wouldn't get traded.
That's where I think it's going to be different.
But I don't think it's going to feel different once the season starts because people expect results and you're not going to see them.
Maybe. I think the process could look a lot different. Like maybe they handle their 40-man a little differently, and that would be a vast improvement. Like this year, that might have been enough for them to make the playoffs. If they just handled their 40-man a little bit better and they weren't so rigid in the way that they were like, no, Ryan Fernandez cannot possibly go down to the minor leagues to continue to work on his slider. We're going to get this fixed at the major league level, right? That kind of rigidity might have lost them 3 games at the beginning of the year. And you look back at the standings now, that might have been enough for them to make it to the playoffs, or certainly at least be in it once we get to the end of the regular season. So that thing I think looks maybe a little bit different. And you mentioned the other piece that I think will feel a little different this offseason. I think they're going to make decisions on young players. When was the last time we saw the Cardinals make a legitimate decision on a young player that had playing time at the big league level, but just wasn't quite what they needed any longer? You guys think of many in recent memory? And I'm talking about like selling that piece. Being able to use that guy, saying, you know what, this is not what we need any longer. We're going to go with somebody new. Like Lane Thomas, coming off of the COVID season?
Him, but he had kind of really worn out his welcome. I was thinking like Aledmys Diaz.
Sure.
But I don't remember what they traded him for.
I think that was DeYoung, right? They had to like emerged as, okay, he's our shortstop now. We don't need to do this Aledmys Diaz thing.
Last one I could think of is Brett Wallace.
I mean, yeah, it's...
Or what's his face that they traded for Jason Hayward? I know I just said what's his face, but...
Shelby Miller?
No, Jenkins. Wasn't it Tyrell Jenkins, pitcher in their minor league system? I don't know how much hype there was there, but...
And that's different because I'm talking about guys that at the big league level had shown whether or not they were going to be legit good players. Like Tyler O'Neill was one of those guys that we talked about. Do you trade him at his peak, or do you trade him prior to that peak season? Harrison Bader, I guess, kind of was this, but that was a deadline move as opposed to an off-season with multiple years remaining. It's not something they've done a whole lot for in the past. This would be different if they decided to go that path with Donovan, Nootbaar, Gorman, any of these guys, Burleson, that have multiple years of cost-controlled term remaining on their deals. That, to me, would feel different than what it's been in the past.
Yeah, I mean, Diaz, they did move on from, but they traded him for a minor league outfielder.
But that might be the kind of move that they're doing.
J.B. Woodman.
Oh, man.
Anybody remember that guy?
That might be the kind of move that they make. Like just because you do this doesn't mean it works.
Yeah.
Oh, yeah.
It might fail spectacularly. More often than not, they do fail. You get a player that's worse than the guy that you traded, but at least it's different.
Yeah, but you don't want that to become a trend. I mean, the first one might not work out, but if the 10th one doesn't work out, then you got a problem.
And that's when we'll get to him in like 3-4 years where he's at in this. But I think it will feel different because I think it's going to feel or at least what I think a lot of the fan base has felt is everything's been too stagnant. It's been not very creative. Like we could pinpoint what they were going to do in an off season. I don't think you're going to be able to do that this year. I think it is going to be very creative of what they try to do. To where first you maybe see it and go, I can't believe they just traded Brendan Donovan. Then you see the return and go, okay, I can see what they're trying to do. He's Tanner Hendrickson. That's Alex Ferrario. I'm Brandon Kiley. If you guys missed any of our conversation with Katie Woo, you can check that out on the podcast page after the show today. 101ESPN.com and the free 101 ESPN app is where you go to find it. 314-399-9646 is the Air Comfort Service text line for questions and answers coming up next.
All right, 314-399-9646 is the Air Comfort Service text line from the 314. Let's start out with this. Guys, did you see that? Looks like Albert Pujols is a candidate for the managerial gig with the LA Angels. We were just talking about this a little bit off air. What do you guys think about this?
We broke this news like a month ago, T-Bone, when somebody put a report out, and we were like, well, this is obviously true.
I'm really tied in with that because I don't know that it was true.
I mean, look, Albert was going to get a manager job at some point. If I'm him, this isn't the manager job I want to start my career with.
Agreed.
I would take, there's so many other jobs I would take if I'm Albert. I would take the Atlanta job in the heartbeat if I'm Albert before I would take the Angels job. But you got to do the interview, right? They want to interview you. You go into the interview and, get some experience if that's not the direction you want to go.
Also, if we're being real, there's only 30 of these. And... yeah, I would rather have the Atlanta job. There's no suggesting that the Atlanta Braves are interested in Albert Pujols, though. There's no guarantee that that's the direction they would want to go. Maybe the job that he has an opening for, or that he has interested in him, is the Angels, and that's it. So eventually you've got to take a job. I still don't know that this would be the one that I'd be interested in.
I think I'd wait it out for another year.
But... good for him, man. If this is, it's LA. He's comfortable with obviously living there. He was there for, close to a decade of his life. So there's that value. He knows the owner, has a good relationship with the owner, despite the fact that he DFA'd him.
I don't know how good the relationship really is.
I mean, apparently decent. If he's still doing he has the personal services contracts with them. And, if he's going to interview for the job, apparently it's at least a decent relationship. I would find it to be a fascinating storyline. I just don't know if you can win there.
Yeah, I don't think you can. I mean, the ownership group, Moreno's, I don't know what the word would be to describe them, irrational when it comes to baseball decisions. They're stuck in the middle. Hey, if they offer the job, you probably take it because you can take that and then maybe go from there and go somewhere else. I just don't see him winning in L.A. That is a mess.
Beyond that, I also just find it fascinating that there's an all-time great player that wants to do this.
I know.
It's such a thankless job. When was the last time we had a legit Hall of Fame level player that decided, you know what I want to do next? I want to manage. I want to manage Major League Baseball. That's the job I want. Not hitting coach, not roving instructor, not go on as an analyst or be part of the front office. No, I want to be the manager, the guy that gets all of the criticism. It's very rare in modern baseball to see something like this.
Not just baseball, but I mean, pro sports, really.
Yeah.
NBA is probably the only one where it feels like you see those Hall of Famers that want to be around.
They've kind of started that
Gretzky
trend.
Gretzky did it for like a year and was like, yeah, this sucks. I'm not doing this. And I mean, football, you don't see, you see former players, but you don't see Hall of Famers.
No, the best one that you've seen recently is Vrabel.
Yeah.
And Vrabel was a really good player, but he wasn't at this.
He wasn't a Hall of Famer. He was just on an incredible team.
It just doesn't happen.
Yeah.
I mean, you used to see this in baseball, way back in the day.
He was playing, too.
Yeah, sure. Way back in the day, you would see guys retire and then take over as manager. There would be player managers, all of these different things. Those guys weren't making the kind of money that Albert Pujols made, though. So part of it was financially, it was, a lucrative endeavor, all things considered, for them to go into the managerial side of things. Nowadays, dude, as a player, if you're Albert Pujols, you made more than $100 million in your career. You never have to work again if you don't want to. And he's choosing...
Tells you the passion.
Potentially.
Tells you the passion he has for it, which might make him a great manager. We don't know until we see it, but Yachty's the other one. Yachty's the one that wants to manage, and it's like, dude, you don't have to do this. Yeah. But I don't know. This could go two different ways. It could be terrible and you're not great at it, or you could be awesome at it because you have this much passion to do it.
All right, 314-399-9646 is the Air Comfort Service text line from the 636. BK, what did you think about the Big Brother finale? Kind of underwhelming result after a fun season, in my opinion. I thought it was amazing. Reason why I'll do this in 20 seconds for you real quick. I don't remember a time where we got that kind of a twist at the end. I don't want to give away any spoilers for anybody that hasn't seen who ended up winning, but the twist was a legitimate surprise. I didn't see it coming, so kudos to the winner. Did not anticipate it. Deserved it. I thought after seeing yesterday's episode, or this week's episode, they legitimately deserved to win. All right, 314-399-9646 is the Air Comfort Service text line from the 314. Guys, what are your overall thoughts on day one of the Major League Baseball playoffs? You better have an ace. You better be able to hit for power. Those were my two biggest things coming off of day one. The teams that won had either one or both of those elements to their lineup yesterday. Look at the scores: 2-1, 3-1, 3-1, and then 10-5 with the Dodgers. That one got out of hand early, though. They had amazing starting pitching, and then for most of them, the runs were almost exclusively scored via the home run ball. So that was my biggest takeaway from day one.
Home runs, great pitching. I feel like we say that every single year when it comes to postseason
100%.
baseball. Nothing really changes.
Hey, Alex, what are the Cardinals missing right now?
Oh, man. You get time for this list?
Home runs,
number
great
one
pitching.
starter.
Those are the two things that they are missing more than anything else.
Well, Brewers are going to have success if that's the case.
I hope so, because they're like the one that I would look at and say, hey, can they buck the trend? Because they don't hit a ton of home runs. They've been better, but they don't hit a ton of home runs. But yeah, I mean, that's what the theme of yesterday was, right? It's the thing that I've been saying since we started the show. Now, granted, I think the pure dominant number one had kind of faded away a little bit in October, and now I think you're starting to see it reemerge, because it had been bullpens, had been the number one thing. Yesterday was the storyline of number one starters.
And that'll change because you're going to need to get depth as you get into the DS and the CS and all that. But
man, slug baby slug.
guy.
I've been talking about that since I joined your guys' show in 2021. Still remains true to this day. If you don't hit home runs, you're going home.
Especially against those number ones.
Exactly.
If you because you can't string together hits.
Look at the Cubs game.
It's so hard, man.
Pavetta struck out. Was it Pavetta? Yeah, Pavetta struck out 9. He made 2 mistakes, and both of them ended up in the bleachers. Padres lose.
5 innings, 3 hits, 2 earned runs. Boom. Game over. Cubs win. That was the story of the game yesterday. Was just they hit a couple of long balls and game's over. And the Cubs were one of the teams that did not have great starting pitching. Boyd was fine. Goes 4 1/3. We talked about this before the show, T-Bone. You mentioned it. It was the closest comparison to what we saw from Ollie Marmol with the Cardinals in 2022, where they pulled the starter early, despite the fact that yesterday Boyd was at 58 pitches, went 4 1/3, gave up just 1 earned run, was solid overall. Go to the bullpen. They were able to lock it down. Did not give up a hit the rest of the way. That was the biggest difference between them and the Cardinals. The process worked for the Cubs. It was the same, but it worked for the Cubs. It did not work for the Cardinals against the Phillies, and here we are. All right, alongside Alex and T-Bone, I'm BK. It's BK and Ferrario here on 101 ESPN. We'll talk to Chris Kerber, the voice of the Blues, coming up at 12:30. But next, Chaim Bloom had an interesting comment on both Nolan Gorman and Jordan Walker. Does it change anything about our impression of their futures here in St. Louis? We'll talk about it next here on 101 ESPN. Alongside Alex and T-Bone on BK. So yesterday, Chaim Bloom had some interesting comments, Alex, on both Jordan Walker and Nolan Gorman. Two guys that I think some portion of this audience, maybe Alex Ferrario being included, are kind of done with. So I want to read these to you, and I'm curious if they change your impression on what the future holds for one or both of those players.
To be clear, I'm done with one of them. Not the other one.
I'll say it. I'm done with both, but okay.
Quote, I still believe in the upside of both of those guys to perform. In Nolan Gorman's case, he's shown flashes. This year, he hasn't been able to get there consistently. I think for him, coming in the offseason with a consistent and clear idea of who he wants to be and something he believes in enough that it can withstand the ups and downs of the season, I think that'll be really important for him. These both come, by the way, from Katie Wu's story over at The Athletic. Then, Chaim Bloom's answer on Jordan Walker. With Jordan, we all have a good idea of what the adjustments should look like. I give him a lot of credit for trying to do that in midseason. I felt it was something that you'd hope to see good returns in season, but really, the offseason was always going to be the real test of trying to cement that and have it be second nature for him. I really do think Walker is the type of talent and player where we are going to see the results at the big league level. For his sake, certainly, but also for our sake as an organization, we need that to happen soon. The offseason for him is a big one, end quote. I'll give you my impression of these quotes, and I was not in the room, so I don't know. But just reading these quotes, one of them felt a little different than the other. One of them on Nolan Gorman was basically what we've been saying about Gorman for 5 years. The other about Jordan Walker was, quote, for his sake and for ours as an organization, we need it to happen soon. This offseason for him is a big one. I think he's still committed to Jordan Walker. That was my read on this quote. On Gorman, I think it's about what is offered. Is that better than what they see as his upside? Because if it is, my read on the situation is that they'd still be open to moving him. But on Walker, I think they're running it back next year. And I think Walker, I didn't know if this was going to be the case, but I think on opening day of 2026, my anticipation is Jordan Walker will once again be starting in right field for the St. Louis Cardinals.
4 years in a row. 4 years in a row.
I think they're going to try to see this one through. They see him as the one guy that, hey, hell or high water, this thing has to work for us.
Yeah. My initial reaction when I read both of those for Nolan Gorman was figure it out. Jordan Walker, we are going to figure it out. And I think that tells you where they're at with these guys. Like Nolan Gorman, him saying like, oh, he's shown flashes. This year wasn't consistent. For him, he's got to figure out who he wants to be when he comes out of the offseason. That was me reading between the lines. Hey, Nolan Gorman, figure out who you want to be, man, because we're done with trying to work with it. You going to be a slugger or are you going to be an on-base guy? Which one you want to go with? Jordan Walker was, hey, we see the potential and we are going to work with him and figure out what it is because we need to. So on one side, it's like, hey, you know what? Whatever happens, happens. We know what you are. We still don't know what you are, but we have hopes of that you can be something special still. So I think these guys are in two different baskets right now. I'm with you. Walker is look, he's not getting moved. We're going to continue to work on this. We need him to work out for our team to have the short-term success. Nolan Gorman, we're done with this. We've got other guys in place. If somebody comes along and offers us something, we'll really consider it, but we're not just going to get rid of them to get rid of them. That's how I read both of those comments.
Yeah, I see it as both are going to be back next year. I don't see where Gorman ends up getting moved. And I think Chaim, he said it perfectly of, hey, look, this guy shows it in flashes. We've been saying that for 3 years. So they at least know what they have. But I don't think they want to sell low on him. And that's where it's coming down to your guys' point. Do they get an offer for him? My expectation would probably be no. And I think they're doing what we've talked about with Jordan Walker in the past. He's the kind of prospect that you look at and say, he either lives up to the potential here or he flames out here.
Absolutely.
And at times, I think that's right. I personally don't see where Walker figures it out. I think he will flame out here in St. Louis. I just don't see it occurring for him. But I think the Cardinals have to continue to run here. And especially while you're in this, whatever we're calling it, bridge year, gap year, whatever.
It's a rebuild. We don't have to call it. They don't have to call it that, but we can.
It's okay, refresh.
Good. I just want to make sure we're on the same page.
It's a rebuild.
In this rebuild, it's okay to throw Walker out there every day and just see if it eventually does click for him. And I think that can also be said for Nolan Gorman, because I think Gorman's the kind of player that it may only happen once, But I think he is kind of like Tyler O'Neill, to where he will probably put it together for one really good season, and you hope he does it next year, and then you can sell high at whether it be the trade deadline or going into next offseason.
Man, the tough part is, all right, if you're going to have Walker in there and you're going to have Gorman in there, you're running out of spots here pretty soon, man. Contreras is back, Herrera is back, Wynn's back, Walker's back, Gorman's back. Probably Victor Scott is back next year as well. Am I missing somebody?
Did you say Burley?
Burleson, I didn't put him into this category just yet because I want to have a conversation that I think will include him. There's a trickle-down effect of keeping Nolan Gorman.
Yeah, you can't have all these guys.
Especially if you're locking in Jordan Walker as well. Arenado, we all agree, we think he's going to get traded. But then what happens with Weatherholt and Gorman and Donovan and Nootbaar and Burleson? They all affect one another. You can't have all of those guys in your lineup again. And yesterday, Chaim Bloom was apparently asked about Brendan Donovan and a potential contract extension. He didn't shoot it down immediately. Let's put it that way. Now, that allows for some flexibility. He didn't say, yes, we're going to have a contract extension done with Brendan Donovan, understood. But I don't know, if you keep Nolan Gorman and you're keeping Jordan Walker, it seems to indicate to me at least one of Donnie or Burleson are probably gone.
Well, I think of that list that you went off with without Burleson there, I think two of those guys are gone.
Weatherholt, Gorman, Donovan, Nootbaar, Burleson?
Yeah. I think Nootbaar and Gorman are the ones that are gone. Because Burleson's taking Nootbaar's spot in left field. They've made it very clear Burleson is an everyday player for them. And I don't know if somebody's going to come in and offer them something ungodly that makes you say, yeah, we'll move on. Like, Burleson looks like a piece that could be a 5 for you. If Walker's in right field, then Donovan is probably at second base for you, or Weatherholt's at second base, and the other's at third base. And the other two guys, I mean, you've given the runway to. There's no more of what we need to figure out, which is why I saw Chaim Bloom's comment as figure it out, Nolan Gorman, because we're going to be listening on you. And if nothing happens, well, then you better come back with with something that we can use this season.
We all agree Arenado's probably gone this offseason, right?
Yeah.
Like 75%.
In some way or another. We all agree Nootbaar's probably gone this offseason, right?
Yeah.
I think that means you then choose between Gorman and Donovan.
And I think if you're going to go that route, I think you have to choose Donovan. And the reason I say that, to be gone.
Oh, okay. No, see, I'm the
That's
other way.
what I wanted to clarify.
And the reason I say that
That's
is
good. Good job.
I don't think you should sell low on two pieces. And right now, I think Nootbaar you'd be selling low on. There's still value there, I want to be clear. But it's not what it was 2 years ago.
Aren't you falling into the same trap that the Cardinals fall into?
I think falling into the same trap would be trading guy while it's at its lowest value.
But
trading Gorman at its lowest, trading Nootbaar at its lowest.
With guys saying, like, well, we can get more out of this guy. We're not going to trade him when he's not good. And then they stick with him too long, and it doesn't work out.
Well, no, that's why I'm saying, though, like, for Gorman, I get what you're saying there, but I think you have to capitalize on one of these guys while they've got peak value. If you're talking about long term, and that was the key word in yesterday's press conference, I'm looking at the value that I'm getting when I'm moving on from these pieces, not just creating spots. And Donovan is close to free agency. He's 2 years away, correct. I believe it is.
He's also higher in age.
Exactly. So I look at him and I say, I think he has to be the one that you then move over Gorman, because Nootbaar, I get it. That one, there's still some value on him, so I think that one's a fine sell-off. But when it comes down to, do I sell Gorman for a scrap heap bullpen arm, or do I sell Donovan for potentially a young, like, say, cost control, whether it be bat or arm that's in the minor leagues that's got good value? I'm going with the Donovan route if this is a rebuild.
And they could say, you know what, we're doing neither. We're going with Burleson. We think we're capitalizing on Burleson at the absolute peak of what he's going to be value-wise, because he still has many years left on his contract. So every team in Major League Baseball could acquire a player like Alec Burleson. Alex, you mentioned he's a great 5-hole hitter. Yeah, that's the case for the Cardinals. It's also the case for, 25 teams in Major League Baseball that he can help them. From the left side, he has positional versatility where he can play at first, he can play in a corner outfield, at least capably at this point. Could be a DH if you really needed him to be, so he could fill in all over for you. He's another guy that I think has maybe a little more value than we're giving it credit for right now. So maybe they say, no, we're not trading Donovan because we value the leadership going through this rebuild. We're not trading Gorman because we're not immediately starting next year with J.J. Weatherholt as a part of our Major League roster. We're going to keep both of them there. Donovan has the flexibility to bump out to the outfield in the event that we need him to. Burleson's gone. Nootbaar's gone. Now we're going to have, maybe it's Donovan, Scott, and Walker in the outfield, and eventually it'll be Contreras, Weatherholt, Wynn, and Gorman in the infield. And you could have Herrera as your catcher most days, and then when he's not there, you put him at DH.
The real thing with all of this is everybody should be on the table, because what this comes down to is, what's the other team giving me? And this is where I trust Chaim Bloom's evaluation, because in the past, I haven't trusted John Mozeliak's evaluation. I'm like, man, you can't give up this guy because you're not going to get the return you think you're getting. Now, if I'm going to trust Chaim Bloom's evaluation of other teams' players and his staff, then nobody's off the table. I mean, if you want to trade Walker, I get it, you don't want to, but if somebody comes in and offers me something that's worthy and makes my team better for the long haul, everything's on the table for this Cardinals team right now, which is the tough decisions Chaim Bloom mentioned that they're going to have to make.
With Alex and T-Bone on BK, more likely to happen coming up next.
BK, football is in full swing, and over at Underdog, we know it's the best place to get in on all of the action. I'm already gearing up for Thursday Night Football, and you can select your entries and win money right now in Missouri. So I've got 4 of them for my entry, BK.
Ooh,
I got higher on McCaffrey rushing yards, higher on Devontae Adams touchdowns, higher on Eddie Pinheiro field goals. I love those field goal plays. And higher on Matt Stafford passing yards. And the cool thing, too, BK, I love this flex option. I only need to get 3 of the 4 right, and I still win 4 times my money.
Playing on Underdog is easy. Choose whether your favorite players are going higher or lower on some of their stats. Get the entries right, and you could win up to 5,000 times in your cash. Alex just mentioned his pick. You can make some over there on Underdog as well. Get him in prior to tomorrow night with Thursday Night Football. Download the app today. Sign up using our promo code BKO. They've got a great promo going on right now. If you use the promo code BKO, you'll score $100 in bonus funds or entries when you play your first $5. That's promo code BKO. Underdog. Make plays, win money. Must be 18 or older. Present in Missouri. Terms to apply. See assets at underdogfantasy.com/web/play and get terms _DFS_.html for details. Concerned with your play? Call 1-800-GAMBLER or visit www.ncpgambling.org.
I told you guys
Sounded
this
like
was
a dog dying.
I told you guys this was going to be. That sounded like a giraffe dying.
All right, 314-399-9646 is the Air Comfort Service text line for more likely to happen. You guys give us a scenario. We'll tell you which one is more likely. I'm going to get a most likely to happen scenario here because there's more than just two options.
Well, that's what the Open says. It's not more likely. It's most likely to happen.
Most likely to happen. Which of these 1 and 3 teams in the AFC makes the playoffs? The Dolphins, the Ravens, the Browns, the Texans, or the Raiders. There are 5 1 and 3 teams in the AFC as of today. Which one of them is most likely to make it to the playoffs this year, Alex?
To me, it's the Ravens. I mean, even if Lamar's out for 3 weeks, I think they still have the chance and the team to run the table the rest of the way and make it into the playoffs. So I would say the Ravens.
I've got the Texans. I think they are more likely than the Ravens to win this weekend, head-to-head. Get to 2 and 3. They're in the division that's maybe the easiest to win. I'll go with the Texans.
See, I think the Ravens have the easiest division to win because even with their injuries, and I know yesterday I kind of held them out of the playoffs,
That's
but
fair.
I don't really trust the
Colts
Texans.
are probably better than the Steelers.
Yeah, of all these teams that we just listed, I don't think any of these teams are making the playoffs. But if I had to choose one, I would say Ravens because
Colts
I
or
think they can win
Jaguars.
that division still.
Colts or Jaguars are winning that division before the Texans are.
Yeah, I agree.
That's
I'm
a
just saying,
terrible
getting
take.
Getting in, that's all they have to do.
on.
What, you not been watching football this year? What's
What the
going
hell
on
you been
over
doing,
there?
man?
Come on, that would explain my picks a little better.
Big a baseball
Alex?
guy right now, I guess. Guys, more likely to happen. Logan Mailloux scores 10 goals or Philip Broberg puts up 50 points.
Oh, God.
Dude, I'm watching Broberg last night. That wraparound goal. Oh my
That was a fun
God.
one.
That was nice.
I actually watched some of the game last night.
No, you didn't.
I'll go 10 goals because 50 points, man. I'd have to look it up. I can't imagine there were many defensemen that scored 50 points last year.
I mean, Broberg had 29 in 68 games. And I mean, before that injury, he was on pace. I think he was on pace for about close to 45. But this is why I put it out there, because I found it interesting.
What was the number on Mailloux?
10 goals for Mailloux or 50 points for Broberg?
I'll go 10 goals for Mailloux.
Man, I'm surprised.
That's a lot.
I'm going 50 points for Broberg.
I just don't know that he screams a guy that has really good stretches of offensive upside, like he did early on when he started with the Blues, and then he'll go through cold spurts to where I think that would be what limits him from getting to 50. And I understand last year he dealt with injury that slowed him down, but
Yeah, I think it's going to be Broberg. Now, I don't know how they're going to deploy the power play. We know Fowler's number one, but I've seen Falk on that second power play unit, and I've seen Broberg on that second power play unit. But all the way up to that injury for Philip Broberg, and again, he was just an ungodly stretch, but in 13 games, he had 11 points. I think if he gets any power play time, I think he could put up 50. So I'm going 50 points for Broberg.
There were 15 defensemen in the NHL last year that had 50 or more points, 15 total. I just think it's a really high bar to clear. All right, T-Bone, what do you got for us?
guys, more likely to happen, the St. Louis Blues end up being top 3 in the Central this season, or the Cardinals find a way to sneak into the playoffs next season?
Blues. They're just further along. So I'll go Blues.
Blues top 3. Dude, you're seeing some of the injuries pop up. Like, I know this Kaprizov thing, everyone's like, oh, they got the deal done. I think Minnesota's going to have like a 2-year window to be like a cup contender, and then it's going to fall flat. Winnipeg lost. They already lost a defenseman who's out 6 to 8 weeks, Sandberg. They lost Taves in that game, and they lost Nemesnikov. Like, that team is starting to really break apart. I think Dallas is going to be the best team in the Central. And then I think second and third place are going to be up for grabs amongst Winnipeg, Colorado, Minnesota, and St. Louis.
Yeah, I agree. Sweep it. It's Blues. I'll be honest, I couldn't really come up with a good one.
It was a really creative one.
314-399-9646 is the Air Comfort Service text line. We'll do these rapid fire edition because we've got Chris Kerber, the voice of the Blues, on the other side. From the 314, more likely to happen, 0 National League Central teams make it to the LCS, or a Central team makes it to the World Series. I think the former. I think 0 teams make it to the NLCS. I've said this all year long. Still feel that way.
Is it Brewers-Cubs if the Cubs win?
Mm-hmm.
That'd be tough.
So one of them has to make it, though, right? To the NLCS?
Unless the Padres win.
Okay, well, I believe the
think
Cubs are
Padres
winning that
the
series,
series,
so I will say that one of them makes it to the NLCS.
I will as well. Fun fact of the day.
Oh,
No team
T-Bone's
that's
fun
ever
fact.
been down 1-0 in the wild card round to come back to win
That's
in
crazy.
advance. So
That's crazy. It makes sense,
stick
but it's
with
so
it.
3 years
crazy.
of evidence. It's going to happen this year. 314-399-9646 is the Air
It's
Comfort
gonna be
Service
more
text line
fast.
for more likely to happen. More likely Snuggie wins the Calder or Weatherholt wins Rookie of the Year next year. Go Weatherholt.
Yeah, I think I'll go Weatherholt. As much as I believe Snuggie can win it, he's going to have some stiff competition. The Demidov right now with Montreal is looking like he's going to be good. So I'll say Weatherholt.
I'll go Snuggerud. I think he'll put up more of the sexy numbers than what Weatherholt will.
More likely to happen, a 10-2 Illini team or a 9-3 Mizzou team, assuming all of the losses are by single digits, make it to the playoff.
Well, one of the losses for Illinois is not single digits.
I still think a 10-2 Illinois team gets in.
10-2.
I'll see. I think I would lean more likely a 9-3 Mizzou team because the SEC is so deep. I think you get a little bit more benefit of that. And Illinois has got, as Alex said, that weird 50-point loss.
Yeah, that was a
Mizzou
1-point
doesn't
loss.
have like a ton of great teams on their schedule. All things considered, given what this SEC is, they got about as advantageous of a schedule as you can have in the
than
SEC.
Alabama, I don't know what you could justify as the other two losses with.
Yeah, I mean, it would probably have to be like Bama, Texas A&M, Oklahoma. You lose those 3 games, they're all close. But at that point in time, your best win on your schedule is probably at Auburn, maybe at Vandy.
Or at Vandy, yeah.
And Vandy might have 4 losses this year. So I don't think that gets you in. I don't think 3 losses, even if they're close, is necessarily going to be enough. I think eventually that'll be good enough. But before we get to the expanded playoffs, I don't think it's there. Yeah. I think Illinois would have a better win, and they would have fewer losses if they're able to go 10-2. So, all right, 314-399-9646 is the Your Comfort Service text line to get involved in the show. We'll hear more from you coming up in the 1 o'clock hour. Chris Kerber, the voice of the Blues, next year on 101 ESPN.
Well, we have hit the month of October. It's October 1. So this is the time of the year that you're going to start seeing pumpkins and maybe even turkey stuff showing up way too early. But here's what also could show up early, some cooler weather, and that means you're going to be going maybe from your air conditioner to your furnace. Well, Classic Air Care wants to remind you that now's a great time to make sure that you get that furnace maintained. They've got maintenance specials. They've got maintenance plans. And the number one thing you can do to make sure that that furnace is ready to go for the winter, doesn't break down at the most inopportune time, is to make sure that you have it maintained and everything is looking good and ready for it. Classic Air Care provides that service, and they provide it at a cheap rate as well that makes it reasonable for you. That also makes you want to have them back because you know they're going to be taken care of, and you're getting great value. That's why they take care of my house. Classic Air Care also wants to remind you that the other thing you can do to maintain your unit is to make sure that you change that air filter. The cleaner the air filter, the less hard that unit's going to have to work, and you can get those online at classicaircare.com. Book an appointment today. Do it online at classicaircare.com. They've been making people comfortable since 1926.
Tanner Hendrickson here with a Sports Center update driven by Johnny Londoff Chevrolet and Johnny Londoff Autoplex. Game 2 of the wild card series between the Detroit Tigers and Cleveland Guardians is underway. In the top of the second inning, Cleveland leads Detroit 1-0 as Detroit leads that best-of-3 series 1-0. In other news across Major League Baseball, LA Angels looking for their next manager, and according to John Heyman, the former St. Louis Cardinals first baseman Albert Pujols will interview for the job and is a top candidate to replace Ron Washington. And tonight here on 101 ESPN, we'll have Game 2 for you between the Dodgers and the Reds, with pregame coverage starting at 7:30 and first pitch at 8 o'clock. This portion update is driven by Johnny Londoff Chevrolet and Johnny Londoff Autoplex. See Londoff.com. Chevy, together we drive. Are you kidding me?
Alongside Alex and T-Bone, I'm BK. You've got BK and Ferrario here on 101 ESPN. Happy to go out to the Collier and Thompson hotline to be joined by the voice of the Blues. He's Chris Kerber joining us here on 101 ESPN. Kerbs, what's going on, man? How you doing today? Chris Kerber, the voice of the Blues.
Hey, I am doing great. How are you guys?
I was gonna do the voice for it, man.
Doing very well. So we saw the Group A at Blues Skate earlier today. It basically looks like an NHL roster. Booch, Thomas, Snuggie, Holloway, Suter, Kyrou, and then it's Joseph with Shin and Bukestad, and Lucic with Sonny and Walker. Now, it is worth noting, Neighbors was not skating today, and neither was Toropchenko. What can we glean from these line combinations, Kerbs?
Well, I think you're at the point of camp where the line combinations you're seeing are the ones that they think could be regular season lines. That's number one. The other thing I think that you're seeing, BK, is plain and simple, the Blues need to get to game ready, regular season ready, and you basically now have 7 days to get that done. And I don't think that we've seen anywhere near enough in the preseason games that shows you that they're at that point. So, to me, I think that's what you're seeing. I like the fact that camp numbers are really dwindled down before yesterday's game. I think it probably gets dwindled down some point soon here, another couple players, because the reality of it is you've got to be ready to go, and I think these next two preseason games have got to be more about getting regular season ready maybe even more so than seeing what players can still do in terms of making the team.
So, Curbs, me reading too much into things, which I do a lot of. When I saw this lines, I said, okay, well, that tells me that they really like Joseph. He's probably making this roster. And then that last forward spot comes down to Lucic and Texier. How do you read what they're going with two final roster spots and potentially 3 or 4 guys fighting for them?
I truthfully don't see a lineup without Nathan Walker in it when I'm talking about being regular season ready and knowing what you're going to bring. Here, the one thing, and now that doesn't mean that you're not nails on that, Alex, or that's not going to be the case. I think they look at the speed of Matthew Joseph, and that ability to play a little more of a physical style of game is something they're looking for when this team starts to look towards an identity. It's a different style of game than Texier, which is more of a skill game, on just as that type of player. Lucic, though, is the one that is going to get every opportunity. He talked about last game. He talked to the team about getting 4 out of the 6 games. That injury kind of held him out of 1. He can still get 4 out of the 6 games if he plays the next 2. They know what they have in Nathan Walker. You know exactly what you're going to get, and that's why I believe he's part of your lineup, because of simply put, that predictability coaches find very comforting. It's comfort food. Predictability is comfort food for coaches, right? So, to me, I'm not reading too much into it. I believe Toropchenko and I believe Walker are every bit a part of that fourth line. How they fill things in, who battles for that third line spot. Some parts are interchangeable, but I really just do feel that 2 of the 3 between Texier, Joseph, and Lucic, to me, it's 2 of those 3 that are really battling to make, if it's not the opening night lineup, the opening night roster, the season opening roster.
Yeah, that's kind of how we see it as well, Curbs. What have you seen from Lucic so far? I know it's an incredibly small sample size because he had that injury in camp, but what have you seen from him that stood out to you?
Yeah, I think, BK, the word for that is progress. It was his very first period in Columbus. That was on a Sunday, so that's literally 3 days after camp opened up. The first period wasn't good, and then I think the next 2 periods you could see him get better. Then, unfortunately, he got slowed a little bit by the injury, got back out on the ice, the day before yesterday, and then played in that game. And I thought, I thought he was okay in that game, and I thought you saw him definitely getting in more on the forecheck. Some of the timing that was there. The one thing you're seeing is he definitely can still skate. I mean, the wheels are there when he gets moving. So I think you're seeing progress, and I really do have to believe that if you're management or you're the coaches, it's this kind of progress you want to see, which will still take another week to make before maybe you make a decision. But again, he brings just such a unique element that not many, or really nobody else on this team brings when you combine that size and that heaviness and all that stuff. That if we continue to see some more progress, say in tomorrow night's game, that really bodes well and tells a story.
Curbs, another decision that kind of felt like at the beginning of camp it was a foregone conclusion, and that was Kessel being that 7th defenseman. But after that game last night, there were a couple of players, Jake Neighbors included, talking about Hunter Skinner and just that physicality that he provides. Is this maybe one of those sneaky guys that people should keep an eye on as the rest of the training camp preseason game progresses?
Unless there is an injury, I don't think so in terms of starting the season with the big club, with the Blues. I think people were talking about him after the game because media was asking about him, right? I thought Matt Kessel actually played a really good game. There were a couple of plays he made in that game yesterday, catching up. One I believe was on Robertson. Another one was on Wyatt Johnston. And I thought Matt Kessel played pretty doggone well. Hunter Skinner, I still believe, is a terrific story, and I think he's putting himself clearly in the call-up list, if there's injuries this season. And this is a guy that, and he's it's going to be a 6th-year pro. I don't know what his waiver situation could be. I haven't looked that up to be, really open and honest with everybody.
Looked it up earlier today, Curbs. I do not believe that he's waivers exempt. So I think he would have to go through
waivers too.
Okay. All right. So that could be interesting if a team that is looking for some size on defense would be there. So that also tells you then, why training camp is really important for players, whether it's with the team you're at camp with or maybe another team. But I think with the forward depth situation and some of the questions, unless there's an injury, I see the Blues in a scenario where you're starting with 14 forwards and 7 defensemen and the 2 goaltenders. So to me, experience matters, and so I like the story of Hunter Skinner. He has turned himself into a player that's on the radar. I just don't know that he has become the player to supplant a Matt Kessel at the moment.
Curbs, last thing for you, and it's non-hockey related. There's some news in Major League Baseball today. According to The Athletic, the front runner to become the next manager for the LA Angels is Albert Pujols. That is the owner's choice. Artie Moreno would like Albert Pujols to be the next manager of the Angels. It's not yet known officially whether or not he would take the job, but it certainly appears that he's their target. We very rarely see all-time great players take over as coaches in professional sports in the modern games. What do you think of this possibility, Albert becoming the next manager of the Angels?
Well, I think there is no doubt in anybody's mind his baseball acumen, okay? The question is, and I don't know enough about Albert off the field, how is his people skill and people coaching and motivating aspect of his game. There's some players that are built for it. Look, Wayne Gretzky, the greatest of the greatest when it comes to hockey, was not great as a head coach, right? Martin St. Louis, a Hall of Famer, is proving to be a pretty good coach with the Montreal Canadiens. I mean, there are some examples of this. Baseball, we haven't seen a ton in there. You see former players, but typically they're role players that have always viewed the game somewhat a little bit differently. One of the challenges when I've talked to people on that topic inside the different sports, BK, is can that superstar relate and speak the game to the players that didn't see it as well as they did? And I'll give you a great example of this. You ever sit next to Bernie Federko at a Blues skate, whether he's watching a face-off or a shot or something, he is seeing something a lot of times so differently than just about anybody else sitting there. I mean, and when you listen to Bernie sometimes talk with players that are not Hall of Fame level like he was, even then you hear a difference in things that he's seeing, and even the players go, wow. So, hey, listen, it'd be great for the game. I don't know if the guy can manage. I don't know if he has the people skills to manage. Biggest question is, does he have the ability to see the game at a level that he can coach it, rather than wonder why other people can't see what he's seen?
It's going to be really interesting. I'm fascinated to see where this thing goes. I think the reaction here in St. Louis is going to be interesting, given the fact that they have now made it clear they're sticking with Ollie Marmol for 2026. And if Albert Pujols is going to get another job or get a job in this capacity,
real quick.
Go ahead.
Oh, sorry about that. One more quick thing to add. I think it's an absolutely foolish hire by Artie Moreno. Where the Angels are, again, firing another coach, the talent that's gone through there, whether it be Albert during his heydays, you got Trott, you had Ohtani, and just a lack of on-field success, they need to figure out baseball ops. Hiring a name like Albert Pujols, to me, is not the way that organization needs to be fixing things.
It's what they do, though. They chase stars. Right or wrong, right. This is the direction that they tend to go. Hey, Curbs, always appreciate the time, man. Great to be able to catch up. We'll talk with you again next week.
All right, guys. Have an awesome week.
See you, Curbs.
That's not Albert Pujols.
That's Albert Pujols.
That's Chris Kerber joining us here on 101
Albert
ESPN.
Pujols on T-Bone.
Albert Pujols, again, according to The Athletic,
is
the
Albert.
leading choice to be the next manager of the Angels. I was now able to read this story during our last break, Alex, and it sure sounds like it's going to come down to whether or not Albert wants it. He's probably going to be offered this job, according to the report, which comes from Ken Rosenthal, so take it to the bank. And if he wants it, the job is probably going to be his.
Yeah, and I mean,
Sounds like he might be able to choose his president of baseball operations, too.
Oh, then I would take that job.
Yeah, I mean, Albert's essentially
Wait, I didn't
taking
know
over
that.
and running the team. So,
It says
yeah.
in this story, the status of their GM remains unclear. Whether or not he's back is unclear. He has another year left on his deal. He is not expected to be the lead decision maker in the hiring of the next manager, regardless.
Oh, ouch.
Yeah.
Yeah, I
would take that
okay,
job.
I would take that too. Like, I still think it's a bad situation, but if you're Albert and you get to handpick your GM,
And it's experience. Like, people know that the team is awful, and if Albert at least makes it look adequate, I mean, that's a notch in your belt if you're Albert Pujols.
Yeah. It's an interesting one. That's for damn sure. We did get this as well on the blue side of things, Alex. Jim Montgomery speaking to the media right now. He was asked, Jeremy Rutherford tweeting this out, the Blues have tried many players on the third line at right wing. Monty was asked about the options and how long they'll keep looking. He said, quote, until we find one. It's that easy. Players have had good moments. Players have had off moments. I don't think anyone has clearly grabbed it, though. He was asked about Bukestad, who was in that capacity today as the third line right winger. Quote, I thought he was good out there. I noticed a lot more offensive plays happening. He seemed like he was a lot more involved in the offensive opportunities. It looks like he's pretty comfortable at right wing.
Yeah, that to me, after watching, and I mean, we've seen Bukestad on the wing, but it's been with Dvorsky. We haven't seen a Bukestad on the wing with a Shen or a Suter, guys that realistically he could be playing with. I just haven't noticed him a lot on the offensive side playing the center position, and I don't know if you want him playing that fourth line role. I mean, there's perks to it. He's big. He's faster than people give him credit for, so he could create offense. But, man, he scored 22 goals a couple of years ago. He's 6'6". I would put him on that line because Joseph hasn't taken it. Texier hasn't taken it. Really, the best guy that's played there has been Carbonneau, and they sent him back to juniors. Yeah. So I don't think Bukestad makes sense as a fourth-line center. I think he makes much more sense at the wing on the third line, which if that's where he's playing tomorrow, I'm very excited to see what it looks like.
Coming up next, we're going to dive into the junk drawer here on 101 ESPN. Alex, have you ever had any issues with parking tickets or tolls that were unpaid or anything like this in your history?
No, I typically pay those right away when I get them. I've gotten them in the past, but yeah, I pay them pretty quickly because it doesn't hit your insurance, if I think of this correctly, because it's a non-moving violation.
Correct.
So I typically pay those right away. I don't have to worry about them.
Timon, have you ever had any issues with anything like that?
Not that I can think of, no.
So at Mizzou, anybody that went to Mizzou probably had a similar issue. I had maybe more so than some. I had an issue because I was like all day in classes. I built my schedule in a way where like from 8 a.m. until like 3 p.m. I would be in a class at all times effectively. And at Mizzou, the way that it works with the meters, you could only pay for an hour and a half. So almost every day I got a ticket. There's just nothing you can do. I had to park somewhere. So eventually it's like, all right, well, I'm just going to take all of these tickets on.
BK just says, I'll get slapped on the wrist for it.
Hopefully you can just get away with it, right? There's not really a whole lot they can do. Or so I thought. Unfortunately, they withheld my diploma, and they were like, hey, until you pay all of these, like, hundreds of dollars in tickets,
BK's like,
you cannot have your diploma.
Is this a story to say that you don't have your diploma?
Yeah,
and
you
you're
actually
still
didn't graduate from Mizzou?
Me and Tim, both of us, went to Mizzou, did the journalism thing. Neither of us have our degree,
BK
actually.
telling us he's leaving the show to go back to school.
The reason I bring this up is because a Jersey City man who allegedly racked up more than $18,000 in unpaid tolls was arrested after police say that he tried to obscure his license plate with a pair of socks.
Oh my
gosh. The 51-year-old man was pulled over on Friday when they noticed that there were black socks stretched out over the license plate on his white Mercedes Benz. He did not have an easy pass, and up here when you're going through these tolls, that's the way that you can do it. He had 272 violations, which totaled more than $18,000 in tickets. 18 grand, bro?
I don't understand
That is like my tuition at Mizzou.
Yeah, I don't understand those people that think they can get away with that. Like, come on.
I mean, apparently it worked for a really long time.
Yeah.
If he was able to rack up 272 of these violations.
And I guess
at some point it's going to get you.
I guess maybe not. I was going to say, I guess you just like put a little bit of money down on it every now and then just to kind of make it look like you're paying off your fines. But
I don't think that matters, though. It's not like a medical.
I don't think it happened.
It's not a medical bill that you just pay a little and they won't send you to collections. If you don't pay your fine, they're going to find out and they're going to get you, and then you're going to jail.
Well, it took them a really long time to get him.
Well, maybe he didn't get caught for a while by the police, but that one time you get pulled over, man, it's like,
apparently
oh, hey.
the sock trick was working.
Yeah, you got $18,000 in ticket.
Oh, my God, man.
You talked about how much, we talk all the time about the anxiety you get with planes and things like that. Have you ever had the anxiety of like, man, I think I paid that parking ticket, or I think I paid that speeding ticket that I got, but I don't remember. And then when you get pulled over, you're like, oh, God, I hope they don't arrest me because I have an unpaid ticket.
So I didn't have that, but I did have an issue with my taxes recently.
Well, that's not good.
So in Kansas City, when you live in the city, you have an earnings tax. It's 1% of your potential earnings. It goes towards it's an income tax for the city, right? So when I was in KC working at the station there for that year, I was living with my mom because my wife, then girlfriend, now wife, was still here in St. Louis. I was with my mom in Kansas City, living in her apartment. She had the extra room, figured it made more sense to do that while we were figuring out kind of what our long-term plan was. So I lived there, didn't think much of it. And I assumed, hey, with this earnings tax thing, like they're taking that out of my paycheck already. That was my assumption. That apparently never took place. So over the course of the entire year, I never once paid this earnings tax in Kansas City. I was unaware of this at the time. Should have been. That's my mistake. I messed up. I assumed the entire time that I had paid that. I lived and worked in Kansas City, Alex, in 2019. I got an email or a letter in the mail like 6 months ago, something like that. Hey, you have all of this money that's unpaid in taxes. Like, what are you talking about? I had no idea what they were talking about. And come to find out, apparently it was not paid. It was supposed to be done through the HR department, and just it was a box that never got checked on my paycheck.
Nice.
So I had all of this money that I owed to the city. So that, you want to talk about anxiety, that gave me anxiety.
That's really
so I was like, what do I
started.
do? So yeah, that's where it stemmed from.
Man, that makes sense. Yeah, I've always had that when you get pulled over, and it's like, I got a parking ticket 4 years ago. Did I pay that off? Because if I didn't, I'm about to be put in handcuffs.
This conversation right here is making me wonder, boy, did I really submit my,
well, you know how
what's the thing they do in Missouri, the personal property tax? Did I submit that?
You know
I'm
all
pretty
those
sure I
scams
did.
that get texted to you, like, oh, you didn't pay this. The police are searching. Every time I'm like, man, I don't want to go downtown at all.
So that's what I did when I got this this letter in the mail. I was like, oh, well, this is obviously a scam. This is somebody telling me that I didn't pay taxes when I clearly did. So I got in touch with all of the numbers that were necessary. And they're like, hey, yeah, we've got you in here. You owe X, Y, and Z. Oh, bleep. I better get this thing figured out.
It's been a goal in my life to make sure I avoid prison at all costs.
Yeah, it's not ideal. All right, coming up in about 15 minutes or so, we'll dive into some NFL quick hitters. But next, the theme of the day and day one of baseball's postseason, was incredibly clear. What does it mean for the Cardinals? Talk about that next year on 101 ESPN. Alongside Alex and T-Bone on BK, day one of Major League Baseball's postseason is in the books. The scores: Detroit Tigers 2-1 over the Guardians. The Cubs won 3-1 over the Padres. The Red Sox won 3-1 against the Yankees and the Dodgers in what was the only real high-scoring game of the day, 10-5 over the Cincinnati Reds.
Cardinals could have competed with all of them with the offense that they had.
Alex, the theme of the night was not difficult to figure out. The Dodgers hit 5 home runs and Blake Snell struck out 9 over 7 innings. For the Tigers, they won because Tarek Skubal set a new career high, 14 strikeouts over 7 2/3 innings. The Cubs hit a couple of home runs, and Garrett Crochet struck out 11 over 7 2/3 innings for the Red Sox.
What's high score mean?
Stud starters plus home runs equals wins in the postseason. That was the formula on day one. Now, this is eventually going to change. You will come into like day 2, 3, 4, so on, especially as we get into the DS and then eventually the CS. You're going to need more depth. And when you get these guys out there, most teams don't have 3 or 4 great starters. So that's where you need the bullpen to step up. But on day one, this is a place where the Cardinals have seemingly felt light for a decade. They don't have that dude that goes up head-to-head against another team's number 1 starter and puts up those kinds of numbers. So for all of the talk about this rebuild, how you get things back on track, and Katie mentioned a number of times with us over the last few days, the Cardinals aren't just trying to get back to the playoffs as a wild card contender. The Cardinals are trying to get back to a place where they can win a World Series. They can be viewed among the best in the National League once again. Well, this is the place where you have to begin. You got to get one of those dudes. I don't care how you do it, but you got to find one. And then if you can add in the power as well, that's the secondary piece to this as well. And they were terrible in that regard this year.
Well, and hopefully the Cardinals have a jump start on that when they drafted Liam Doyle this past year. Maybe he's that dog that they're talking about, and then from there you build out. But this is what's been frustrating over the last 4 years with what the Cardinals' mindset has been. Like, just get in and anything can happen. No, man, the cream rises to the top. And unless you got a stud ace or a massive MVP-esque bat, which the Cardinals had 2 of them, and both crumbled in the playoffs, you don't have a shot. Like the Cincinnati Reds, fun, cool, congratulations. You're not going to win because the other teams are just that much better than you. So that's why I appreciate where Chaim Bloom is coming from. This isn't just a matter of, we want to start drafting and developing so that we can get back to the playoffs. No. This is, we need to go out there and evaluate our players, and as Chaim said, continue to have a conveyor belt of championship caliber players that we just keep churning through, not just to get in and anything can happen. Get in and other teams fear you. So hopefully they've got a jump start. You've drafted Weatherholt, who looks like he's going to be a star. You drafted Doyle. He could potentially be that star. That's the beginning stages of all of this. And then from there, man, you got to go out there and continue to add like all of these teams have done and why they've been successful in the playoffs.
Yeah, and if you're going to be a contender like they want to be, you got to have both. You can't just have one of these. And that's been their problem over the last couple of years, because you look back to that 2021 postseason run when they get there. Yeah, you're right. They had the 3 MVP caliber bats in Goldie, Arenado, and O'Neill that year. They didn't have enough pitching in 2021, and they probably didn't have enough pitching in 2022 either, if we're being honest. They would have matched up okay. They didn't really have a stud that was at the top of their rotation when you're starting Quintana in game number 1 of a postseason series, and then Michaelis was game 2. So they've always fallen short on one of those. You've got to have both if you're going to be a true contender. Like the Cubs, seeing what they had with Matthew Boyd yesterday, where they were quickly, hey, we got to go 5 and die with them. They might be able to get away with it because it's in the wild card round here. As that starts to get deeper and deeper into the postseason, you can't be pushing your bullpen that much from every starter. You can do it for a handful of games, but somebody's got to be the guy that eats a big bulk of innings, and it's what makes me think the Cubs won't be going far in this October race.
It's absolutely why I don't believe in them, because I don't think they have the pitching to do it. I mean, you look at these other teams, they just don't stack up pitching-wise against the other teams across the National League, the true contenders in that regard. I think the Cubs are a really good team. I do not think they're a championship caliber roster, though. I feel the same way about Milwaukee. I think Milwaukee is a good team. I do not think that they are a championship caliber roster. We'll see. I could absolutely be proven wrong. I didn't think Arizona going into that postseason was a championship caliber roster, and they were right on the cusp of being exactly that. So we'll see. But the other thing, you just look at the way that these guys were acquired for their respective teams. Tigers developed Skubal. Guardians developed their guy. Reds developed their guy. But beyond that, Padres signed their starter yesterday. Cubs signed him. Red Sox traded and extended their starter from yesterday. The Yankees signed him in free agency. Dodgers signed him in free agency. These teams are acquiring these stud-level starters after they're already good. They find out who the good starters are, and then they go get them in one way or another. So it doesn't have to come from within for the Cardinals. I know that's what they're saying right now, and sure, I guess, but they signed Sonny Gray, man. They paid him basically the equivalent of $25 million a year. That was the AAV at least. You can get one of these guys for something close to that. Now, it will be over more years, and so it is a riskier proposition, but eventually the Cardinals are going to have to give on one way or another. Either they're going to have to become so much better with their pitching pipeline, and I think that's their goal, that's the hope, or if that doesn't produce one of these pitchers that we're talking about here, you're going to have to make the plunge, man. It's going to be scary. It's going to be risky. It's going to be something that if it goes poorly, you could be the next Orioles where, guy gets hurt and you got nothing. Because you're not the Dodgers. You're not the Yankees. You're not the Red Sox. You don't have the ability to paper mache over those mistakes by just continuing to spend and by bringing in another $30 million starter. But you got to make your bet and you better be right on it. It's what the Nationals did. Nationals went out. They made their bet. It was on Max Scherzer. They were right. It worked. If you end up getting the right guy, it's the thing that puts you over the top and takes you from contention to World Series contender. That's the difference between those teams, and we saw it on display yesterday. It'll continue to be on display for the rest of the postseason. Do you guys have a team that lost yesterday that you think can come back? T-Bone mentioned this earlier today. So far in the 3 years that we have seen this format in the playoffs, with a 3-game wildcard series, the team that won game 1 went on to win that series every single time. Nobody has come back from a 1-0 deficit thus far in this format. Do you guys think that there will be a team this year between the Guardians, Padres, Yankees, and Reds that is able to do so?
If there was one, it would be the Padres. I don't have a lot. Like, my faith-o-meter is probably at like a 4 of that because the Padres just have been unable to hit. But, you know,
crazy, man.
The Cubs decided to go with an opener or an out-getter, as Craig Counsell likes to label that one. So that seems like it's weird coaching decisions. But they would be the only team. I don't think any of the other ones have a shot.
Yeah, I would lean towards the Padres as my pick as well. I'm worried, like, they're going with Dylan Cease, who stuff looks great. Numbers are not. And that scares me. But he'll be on such a short leash. They've got a dominant bullpen. And I know the offense hasn't hit. They feel like the kind of offense that doesn't hit all year. Then all of a sudden you look and you're like, wow, Machado's like the best player in October. They would be the one that I would bet on.
That's the team for me as well. I've said it all along. I had them winning in this round. I will continue to have them winning in this round, even despite the fact that they're down at 1-0.
How bad is it that none of us had the Yankees?
I think they force a game 3. Their bullpen scares me. I don't think that their bullpen will be able to get them through. I think they win tonight, force game 3, and then lose.
That's bad if you're the Yankees, right? Like,
yeah, I mean,
you can't keep doing this. You can't keep losing in the play. I know they got far last year, and it's a little bit of a difference, but, like, this isn't what the Yankees are supposed to be doing.
The expectation when you have Aaron Judge, the best right-handed hitter of this generation, you need to win World Series. It would have been a failure if the Cards not won a World Series with Albert. They won 2.
Yeah. Well, and it's a failure with the Angels not even getting to the World
100%.
Series when you had Trout and Shohei Ohtani.
The Padres are such a confusing team. As a team this year, they have an OPS of 711, and that is buoyed by their on-base percentage. Their slugging percentage this year as a team, and we just talked about how important it is to slug, is 390. Which is the equivalent of the Washington Nationals and is actually worse than the Royals, the Orioles, the Reds, and the Marlins.
Well, you were just telling me earlier that it's the manager.
You're the worst, man. You're the absolute worst.
Brandon.
He's Alex. That's T-Bone on BK. NFL Quick Hitters is next here on 101 ESPN.
Tanner Hendrickson here to tell you about my friends at DraftKings Sportsbook, America's top-rated sportsbook app, which is coming soon to the Show Me State. As new Missouri customers can download that DraftKings Sportsbook app today, and when we go live, place just a $5 bet to unlock $300 in bonus bets. And starting on November 17th, you can create your DraftKings Sportsbook account here in Missouri and get ready for launch day on December 1st. DraftKings Sportsbook brings everything you need to elevate your game day, including live in-game betting, lightning fast payouts, and endless ways to get in on the action, all right from your phone. And when DraftKings Sportsbook goes live in Missouri, you'll be betting with the Sportsbook app trusted by millions. Safe, secure, and has fast money withdrawals. So download the DraftKings Sportsbook app now and grab $300 in bonus bets with just a $5 bet when you go live December 1st in partnership with DraftKings Sportsbook. Gambling problem? Call 1-800-GAMBLER. 21 plus. Physically present in Missouri. Eligibility restrictions apply. Bonus bets expire 7 days after issuance.
Alongside Alex and T-Bone on BK, it's BK and Ferrario here on 101 ESPN. Let's dive into some NFL quick hitters. Alex, as we start out this week, man, it feels like injuries are once again becoming the theme of the week. Do you guys see this news from Tampa Bay? Bucky Irving placed on injured reserve. That's a big one for them, man. I've really enjoyed watching the Tampa Bay Buccaneers this year, but he's been a pretty significant part of that. They have a massive test this weekend on the road at Seattle, and the Seahawks are one of the teams that I've also enjoyed watching so far this year. How much of a concern do you think this is for the Bucs if this is a significant injury that's going to take him out for a decent amount of time? And it seems like it will if he's on IR.
I mean, I want to keep saying that it's going to be significant injury and it's going to hurt them, but I said the same thing when Evans went down, and it's like, nope, still find ways to win. Now, when you lose Evans, when you lose Bucky Irving, and all these other guys are dealing with injuries like Godwin and Igbuka, at some point this is going to falter for you. But man, like the Tampa Bay Buccaneers are the perfect example of a team that the more you doubt them, it seems the better they are. So I don't, it's a concern, yes, but I fully expect the Buccaneers to keep finding ways to win, and then when these guys get back healthy. So, it's just is like the next man up for this team, or Baker Mayfield's just going to have to take on more of a role.
Yeah, I think this is the one that might slow them down a bit. And the reason for it is because he is so explosive in the running game. You can continue, even if your weapons are banged up or you do lose a piece, you can still say, okay, we can rely on the running game. If the running game establishes itself, that can lead to play action, and then you can hit more pieces down the field. Rashad White doesn't really scare me. Like, he's fine. He's a good backup. He's not the same as Bucky Irving. Like, this is the one where I look at and go, okay, you can lose a receiver. You can lose two. Baker's going to be able to find his guys, but at least you've got the running game. and now the running game's gone. So I'm a little worried now about the Bucs.
I'm worried about their upcoming schedule. They've got the Seahawks on the road this week. Then they have San Francisco, and then they've got Detroit. Those are not easy games if they're going to be without both Mike Evans and Bucky Irving for them potentially. You could lose 2, maybe 3 of them, and then you're sitting at 3-4, something like that after these few weeks. 4-3, one of those 2. And then down the stretch, you've got at Buffalo. You've still got a game at L.A. with the Rams. I think they make the playoffs. I think they probably win this division. I just think it ends up being a little closer than it currently feels in that NFC South. Do you guys have a side that you like on that game? That's one of the more intriguing matchups. I was talking about this with Jamie, actually, in the break room a little bit earlier today. Do you have a side that you like between the Bucs and the Seahawks? Seahawks right now are a 3.5-point favorite.
I mean, look, with the injury, I like the Seahawks because they're at home and they've just been playing a solid football game, but I can see the Buccaneers winning this one. Like, this one to me is 50-50 toss-up. I can see Baker Mayfield and the Buccaneers finding ways to just heave the ball downfield with Igbuka and Godwin and just finding a way to will that game to a victory.
I like Seattle in this one.
Me too.
I love the defense that they've been playing with. Sam Darnold looks pretty solid at the quarterback spot. And now that you've got this injury to the running game, I think it forces them to be more pass-heavy, and I think that plays into Seattle's advantage on defense.
Big one in the NFL this weekend is the Browns making a change at the quarterback position. They're going with Dylan Gabriel as their starter this weekend against the Minnesota Vikings.
Magic's gone.
That's a tough defense to get your first start against, man. Going up against Brian Flores, he's a tough schemer. So we'll see how this ends up going for him. The Vikings right now are a 3.5-point favorite, though. This is over in London, Browns versus the Vikings. I think I like the Browns in this game,
I do
guys.
too. If the Vikings are 3.5-point favorite, if this was our pick 'em, I'd make this like my 2-point play of taking the Browns plus 3.5. As much as, yes, you're right, the Vikings defense is great, but I have also just saw what Carson Wentz in that offense is. So I would put more money on getting that new quarterback bump from the team. You saw it with Jackson Dart, and I'm not saying they're going to get the same type of production, but that defense will strike fear into the Vikings offense. So, yeah, I would take Browns plus 3.5.
Man, I'm leaning Vikings, and it kind of scares me because I leaned Vikings last week against Pittsburgh because of their defense, and they found a way to lose that game. I think it helps them, though, that they've been overseas the last 2 weeks. Cleveland has to go through the long time travel travel and then deal with the time difference.
Time travel.
I look at that and I say, boy, that makes me think there's a little bit of an adjustment there. I think I lean Minnesota this week.
Really? I like the defense for the Browns against the Vikings. That's the thing that's putting me over the top. I mean, I think we saw last week, Carson Wentz is just not an NFL starter. And if you're going to put that guy, I think that the Browns defense scores this week.
I do too.
I think there's a decent chance that the Browns defense will outscore the Vikings offense in this game. So I'm going to go with the Browns side of things. I think they win outright.
My bold prediction, this is the one that David Njoku just goes off in. He always has that one game where he picks up like 20-something points, and it's like, oh, my God, he's an incredible tight end. And then he does nothing. This was me passive-aggressively, or actually just aggressively because he's on my team. Yeah, well, I just dropped him, so I hope it doesn't. But.
By the way, I do need to apologize. I mixed him up. It was Trey Benson that was put on IR. Bucky Irving is out for the next week or two. Trey Benson, the running back for the Cardinals, is the one that was placed on IR. So no injured reserve right now for Bucky Irving. Just going to miss potentially the next couple of weeks. On the Commander side of things, good news on the injury front. Jaden Daniels medically cleared to return, paving the way for him to play on Sunday against the LA Chargers. This is an intriguing game as well. Chargers potentially going to be without both of their starting offensive tackles. They're 2.5-point home favorite against the Commanders, who are now expected to get back their starting quarterback with Jaden Daniels. How are you guys feeling about this one?
I don't feel great because you're taking on the Chargers, and that's not an easy defense to deal with coming back from an injury, but it's Jaden Daniels, and it just feels like right now when he plays, magic happens out there. So this is another one of those 50-50s for me. The Chargers are going to be pissed off after they just lost to Jackson Dart and the Giants last week. So I think I would lean Chargers. But did you say what the spread was on this?
2.5. 2.5 in favor of the Chargers, which means Vegas basically views them as equal.
I think I would take the Chargers for the straight-up win, but the Commanders with the line, because I think the Commanders keep it close.
Yeah, I lean Chargers in this one because I look at the Commanders' defense, and even though the Chargers, you said, are without their tackles, I look at that and go, the Commanders' pass rush is not that great. I don't think they get to Herbert. I think Kerber still has a good day, and I think that he'll ultimately be able to get them over the top.
I think Washington
That's
gets
a
this
face.
one. I think Washington finds a way to pull this one off. The Chargers haven't looked quite the same over the last few weeks. Week 1, they were amazing against, unfortunately, my Kansas City Chiefs. But since then, they've been solid.
It was west to east last week.
They have not gone against, the best of the best. I think the Vegas game, they looked okay. Defense looked good in that one, but the offense, just okay. Denver, again, just fits and starts. And then last week, they got nothing going against the Giants. I do worry when you've got both of your offensive tackles out, and it's already one of the things that people had questions about coming into the season. That's going to be a problem. And maybe it doesn't show up against Miami next week because the Dolphins are atrocious. I think it probably will against a Dan Quinn-led pass rush in Washington. So I think this is one where you see the Chargers leak a little bit of oil and the Commanders are able to get things going once again with Jaden Daniels back behind center. Thursday Night Football tomorrow night. T-Bone, your Rams in action against the San Francisco 49ers. This is a big spread. You see this? 6.5 points in favor of LA.
And
That seems a little high.
I consider doing the Rams as a survivor pick. But
This week?
Yeah, it worries
Thursday
me, though.
night division game, no chance.
I just think the Rams are
No
better than the
siree.
49ers.
Yeah,
I have not looked at my
I
survivor
think
pick
the
yet
survivor
this week.
pick on this one had like 78% chance for the Rams to win.
You want to go with the Cardinals at home against the Titans?
No, I
Can you
think
just say that their backup running backs on IR?
I think I'm either going Colts or Lions. Colts at home versus the Raiders. Lions on the road against the Bengals.
Yeah, I've already used the Lions, so that's not an option for me.
I think I might be doing
What about
Lions.
If you haven't used the Bills at home,
used
Sunday
them
Night
last
Football
week.
against the Patriots, that's a good one as well.
I used them last week, and they made me a little nervous, so I'm glad I get that one out of
Yeah.
the way. I think I might be going Lions, and I don't like taking a road team with this, but the Bengals are in Saints territory now where it feels like it's an easy win, so I think that one's my survivor
Are
pick.
the Colts the trap pick this week? Feel
Man.
good about them. They're coming off of a loss. They're at home. Raiders haven't been very good this season, but they've got a really good pass rusher in Max Crosby. He wrecks the game, and then you leave, and you're like, I'm an idiot. I trusted Daniel Jones. I bought in.
It feels that way, but I think that's why it feels like a trap pick because of Daniel Jones. And it's like, hey, I can't deny it anymore. Like he's done it for 4 weeks where he's been consistent. So I think it feels that way because you don't trust not Danny Dimes, Indiana Jones.
Yeah, I think it could be a trap game because I could see where they get into the face of Daniel Jones and wreck that game. And Geno, I think at some point, maybe I'm wrong here, Geno will quit turning the ball over as much as he has been. Like he's throwing like 3 picks a game.
It's crazy.
At
He
some
leads
point,
the NFL in interceptions.
Sounds like
at some point, I think he's going to fix that. And if he does, then they're really going to have a chance in that game.
That makes me a little nervous. I think that might be my pick, though. I might have to end up going with the Indianapolis Colts.
BK,
This
this
week.
is
That one does make-
I'll just take it anyways.
That one does make me nervous.
And it's a tough week for Survivor. We're starting to get really into it now. Now that you've had a few teams that are off the
And the reason I want to
board.
go with the Lions is this is the Lions' next schedule. Chiefs, Buccaneers, and then the Vikings. So, like, for the next 2 weeks, I can't use the Lions.
That might be the move.
This one feels like I have to.
If you've got them available, that's probably
I think that's the
go-to.
one we're going with.
All right, coming up in about 15 minutes, we'll hit the rewind. But next, what will the Karill Kaprizov contract mean for the way that NHL teams build their rosters moving forward? We'll talk about that here on BK and Ferrario.
Tanner Hendrickson here with a Sports Center update brought to you by Saliga Heating and Cooling. Game 2 of the wild card round is today, and the Cleveland Guardians Detroit Tigers game 2 is underway right now. They are in the top of the 5th inning, and the game is tied at 1 apiece. The Tigers lead that series 1-0. And tonight here on 101 ESPN, you'll be able to hear game 2 between the Dodgers and the Reds. We'll have pregame coverage starting at 7:30 with first pitch at 8 o'clock. And other news around Major League Baseball. According to Ken Rosenthal, Albert Pujols is who the owner's choice is to take the next managerial job for the LA Angels. The Sports Update is brought to you by Saliga Heating and Cooling, a Daikin heating and air conditioning dealer.
Alex, big news in the NHL a couple of days ago as Kirill Kaprizov has officially signed his contract.
Who could have seen it coming?
Yeah, there was a lot of, is he going to go? Is he going to reject all of these deals? Nope. He signed a $136 million contract over the course of 8 years. If you add up what Robert Thomas and Jordan Kyrou are making every season for the St. Louis Blues, they are making less on an annual basis than Kirill Kaprizov will make for the Minnesota Wild.
Now, here's the follow-up question. Would you rather have Kaprizov or Thomas and Kyrou?
What would you answer?
I think I'd rather have Kaprizov.
Really?
I think so. He's such a beast, man. He plays like a power forward. He's got the shot of a 50-plus goal scorer, and he's like slow, but he's also fast in terms of how he wins puck battles. I don't know, man. I love Thomas and Kyrou. Kaprizov's pretty incredible.
I agree. Kaprizov is incredible. I think I would lean Thomas and Kyrou in this scenario. If I'm getting them for the same amount of money and I can continue to build my roster around them, I prefer
Makes sense.
Getting the two as opposed to the one player. And that's acknowledging Kaprizov is amazing, man. This is not, they should have signed him. This is absolutely the correct decision by the Minnesota Wild because they don't have that choice, right? They don't have the choice of Kaprizov versus Thomas or Kyrou.
Yeah, without Kaprizov, that team's going towards another rebuild.
Exactly. What I wanted to ask you, though, Alex, is, man, this could be the formula that now superstars they're making this percentage under the cap. And right now, I was reading earlier today, this is the highest percentage of the cap taken up by any one player since Alex Ovechkin originally signed his deal like a decade ago. Mm-hmm. It's a ton of money. Now, it will be a smaller percentage of the cap as things continue and as the cap continues to rise. But early on, it's tough. It's tough to make this thing work. Is this going to change the way that teams win? And what I mean by that is we've seen this in the NBA where there was a stretch of time where it was about the super teams. You went out, you got 3 stars. It kind of started really with the Heat and what they were able to build around LeBron James, Chris Bosh, and Dwayne Wade. And they just took the league by storm, right? And then it became that for a while. But it's always really been a star-driven league in that way. You look back to the Bulls, look back to the Lakers. It's always been a star-driven league. And over the last 3 or 4 years, it's been about your weakest link. The NBA has now transitioned into a depth era where if you don't have 8 dudes that can really be positive contributors on the basketball court, you're not a championship level roster. It's changed in that way. Could we see something similar with the NHL where under the new CBA and with these guys that are superstars getting this percentage of the cap, this amount of money, it actually has a rubber band effect where you start seeing the depth of scoring, the pack mentality become the thing that teams need once again?
Yeah, I believe so. Chris Johnston had said this on his show after the Kaprizov signing, saying we might be entering an era now where stars are going to take up more percentage of that cap. Even as the cap goes up, 17 to 18% might become more of the norm. Now, teams can still work with that, but I think the Toronto Maple Leafs were a great example of when you're star heavy and you don't have that depth, things start to falter for you a little bit. So when I saw the contract extension and then the comment from Chris Johnson, I thought, okay, so Doug Armstrong might just trying to get ahead of the trend because the trend might be for teams now. It's like, okay, well, if you don't have a superstar, then you have to go pack mentality. And in the playoffs, the stars always shine, but you also, to win the Stanley Cup, you have to have role players that come out of nowhere and make plays. And most of the time when you start to get players that eat up 18% of the cap, and like this just isn't a Kaprizov thing. They've got Brock Faber, who's already got an extension, but I think he's making like $9+ million, if I'm not mistaken. If this Buyam that they drafted that's going to be as good as they think, he might start getting paid more. And then you have to start making serious decisions on where you're allocating your money and where you're going to be short. I think because of the cap going up and superstar players, if you have them, are going to demand so much money, which so much of the cap space, teams have to make one decision or the other. You either go with that star and say, hey, we are living and dying with this guy. He's going to get us to where we want to go, or we're not going to go that route. We're going to go get more depth to our team so that 4 lines can beat one specific player. Like Friedman talked about Jack Eichel. He said, Eichel now, his price probably goes up a little bit. And I don't know if Vegas is going to have the appetite to pay him that. Because if you do, you can't keep other players. So I do think this is kind of that fork in the road moment where the pack mentality might surpass the superstar-led players.
Yeah, I mean, you might see McDavid make $18 to $20 million if he hits the open market. That might be the kind of asking price that he can command. There might be a team out there that's willing to do it and say, you know what, it's worth it.
Yeah.
It's worth it for us to go that direction. But then it becomes increasingly difficult to build the team around him. Because for the St. Louis Blues, for example, if he's making $20 million against the cap, that's basically what you're going to be paying to Thomas, Kyrou, and Parayko. Pretty similar in terms of the overall numbers. Those 3 are the equivalent to one Connor McDavid. Mm-hmm. Dude, you got to fill out the roster. It's tough. And we got this text. The guys, stars always win in the NHL. So does depth. Sure. But look at the Edmonton Oilers, man. That is not a team that's been built upon depth. Yeah. That is a team that has been built upon star power. But it had Connor McDavid on this deal that had been a long-term deal that got better and better as the cap continued to rise. And now it's about to reset again. And that's when things get tough, is when you get into the spot where McDavid is making that kind of money, or Draisaitl is making huge money again, or you're the Minnesota Wild and you've got Kaprizov making this money. We see Florida capable of doing what they're doing because they had a guy that was a stud, that was the first to make real money on their team, and he's making less than what superstars make nowadays.
Yeah.
And everybody else now is artificially held below that number. For these other teams, what's it going to look like? I don't know. I'm fascinated, truly, to see what it's going to look like. I think depth will win out. I think it will be an era similar to what we're seeing right now in the NBA. I'm not as certain on that, but I do feel that is going to be the case, Alex.
Yeah, I mean, like, don't get this misconstrued. Teams that win the Stanley Cup still can have star players. It's just, how many star players are you banking on and paying star money before your team starts to really fall flat on the other side?
That's the thing. I don't know that you can have any more Draisaitl and McDavid making this kind of money.
Or like the Maple Leafs, where you have 4 guys that are making superstar caliber money and then having deficiencies in other areas. Like Tampa went on their run because they had stars that weren't paid like stars, and they had guys that were having success like Braden Point on cheaper contracts, and when they got paid, you had to make tough decisions. That's always been the case. Like when Pittsburgh was going on their runs, Sidney Crosby was making significantly less than what the market would have paid him because, 1, he was superstitious and liked 8.7, but 2, he wanted to keep the team competitive. Now I don't know how much that's going to be the case because Kaprizov didn't take a discount to stay in Minnesota. He said, no, I'm going to get paid. Now, Minnesota, try building a roster around that. Yes, the cap's going up, but now the tone has been set by your star player. Nobody's going to surpass them. But if I'm a great player on that team, cool. Well, I'm $12 million. I'm $14 million, which is why when you get guys that are willing to take less and keep that pack mentality roll, and you continue to have success in the draft, those teams might survive a lot more in this new cap era that we're headed.
I'm also just curious to see, like, hey, we've talked about it here in St. Louis. Are all of these owners willing to spend to this cap? Because there's going to be some that say, nope, I can't do it. I can't keep up with what Toronto and New York and Boston are spending. Yes, I understand what the cap is, but that's not realistic for us in I don't know, San Jose or in some of these other markets that are smaller that don't bring in the same amount of revenue locally as some of these other teams do. So that's going to be another part of it is some teams might just say mercy. Like I'm out. I'm waving the white flag. I cannot spend up to what the cap is, which means, yes, Kirill Kaprizov's contract is, 18, whatever it is, % of the cap. On theirs, it might be 23%, so that's going to be another factor that plays into this as well. Last thing that I wanted to get to as a takeaway from what Kaprizov is now making, I mentioned the Thomas and Kyrou contracts, man. Those look better and better by the day.
Not just those, the Parayko one.
Absolutely.
But, yeah, I mean, as this thing continues, and somebody also said, well, what's going to happen to the Holloway contract? Really, that relies on him. I mean, if he goes out there and puts together a 90-point season, well, then the conversation changes versus a 60-point season.
It really doesn't affect it, though, because he's an RFA.
Yeah, he's going to get paid. It's just a matter of how many years and what they can come to terms with. But, he's the Blues property no matter what. It's just, what does this look like AAV? And that comes down to the performance that you put out there. But, yeah, I mean, having a number one center and a top six guy who could score 40 goals, both at $8 million in the primes of their career, that is why I think the Blues are opening a competitive window versus some of these other teams that are overpaying for their stars.
It's also why I've been arguing in favor of the Kyrou contract since the day that it was signed. I understand that at the time, it didn't look great. It felt like it was maybe a bit premature. But this is what Army saw coming. He knew that the cap would continue to rise, and when it does, and that continues to be a smaller and smaller piece of that overall pie that is the salary cap, it looks better and better by comparison because players that produce at a similar level to Jordan Kyrou, now that Kaprizov is making $17 million a year, players similar to Kyrou will start making $12 to $13 million per year. And that's when you really start to see the effect of having these long-term deals in place when there's this new CBA in place. That's when over the next 3 to 4 years you start seeing the Blues, not just as a competitor and as a threat in the Western Conference, but that's when they can start doing some stuff that's pretty special. Yeah. That's the way that you put together a roster that can really compete for titles. Alongside Alex Ferrario and Tanner Hendrickson, I'm Brandon Kiley. The Rewind is next. This Browns line is going to make my mortgage payment this month. Plus 3.5, 35.5 point total, plus 162 on the money line for the Browns. Whew, love it. Alongside Alex and T-Bone, I'm BK. It's BK and Ferrario here on 101 ESPN. 101 ESPN this week and next has your chance to win free tickets to see Nine Inch Nails. That's coming up on February 25th. It was a concert that was just recently announced, I think as early as just earlier today. It's going to be at Enterprise Center. Tickets for the Nine Inch Nails go on sale this Wednesday, October the 8th. So that is a week from today. That'll take place at noon. But we've already got your chance to win free tickets for the show before you can even buy them. 314-399-9646. That is the Air Comfort Service text line. Find all of the ticket details and a bonus shot to score free tickets for Nine Inch Nails right now at 101ESPN.com or on the 101 ESPN mobile app, which is powered by Dobbs Tire and Auto Centers. But right now, I'm going to give you a chance to win the pair of tickets to see Nine Inch Nails. If you are texter number 101 with the correct answer to the following question, you are going to get those tickets. Earlier today, we talked during the junk drawer about an individual that had a whole hell of a lot of tickets. What did he do to try to avoid getting those tickets? If you can tell us the correct answer to that question, your texter number 101, you are going home with a pair of tickets to see Nine Inch Nails coming up on February 25th. All right, to finish out the show today, Alex, we go back to where we began, which was with the interviews that Chaim Bloom gave yesterday, not to us, but to the writers that were still out there over at Busch Stadium. Talked to them for about an hour. We've talked about most of this, and you can check out all of it at the podcast page, 101ESPN.com, and the free 101 ESPN app. What was your biggest takeaway from what you read that Chaim Bloom had to say to the writers yesterday?
That there's a chance this team is not going to look like a normal tanking team. I don't think you're going to see them cut bait with almost every single player that they can. They're going to be very selective with that process. But it sounds like from both ownership and Chaim Bloom that there's at least a discussion that's willing to be had over bringing in free agents that could not only help them now, but also help them in the long term in the case of finding some talent, maybe reviving a career, and then that piece becoming an asset that brings you in something at the trade deadline. So it sounds like we don't have to be as pessimistic. That's if you buy the words. They're just words right now. But we don't have to be as pessimistic of this team just shipping out every single thing that's on their roster and just going down to the minor league system and bringing all these young guys up.
My hope is that they go to the market to be able to get some pitching. We'll talk about that coming up today on this week's episode of the Redbird Report. You can find that later on this afternoon, youtube.com/101ESPN STL. Alex also over there, youtube.com/101 ESPN STL. People can right now find the latest edition of the Last Minute Blues podcast. I'm sure you guys talked a little bit today about the roster decisions, which are seemingly coming into form. Do you think that we know what the roster is going to be just yet?
I think so. I think there's still a chance you see one or the other, but in my opinion, last night told me everything. I think your two other forwards that are on this roster are Matthew Joseph and Milan Lucic. And I think that means you might see Alex Texier go through waivers. I also think there's a chance Hunter Skinner could be that seventh defenseman. That might be more of a long shot. But after looking at the line combinations today and just hearing them talk about Milan Lucic, it sure seems like the team wants him to be a part of this roster, and I think Joseph has been the better of the two between Joseph and Texier. So a lot still can change. There's two more preseason games. Tomorrow is going to be an NHL-looking lineup, but I think Lucic has the upper hand, and Texier might be the odd one out.
Earlier today, it was Bukestad that was on that third line right-wing role. Monty was asked about the options and how long they have to keep looking for one. He said, quote, "Until we find one, it's that easy. Players have had good moments. Players have had off moments. I don't think anyone has clearly grabbed it. No, he did, though, have some praise for what he saw today at practice from Nick Bukestad. We'll see more of them tomorrow against the Senators. Alex will have pregame coverage for that one right here in your home of the Blues, 101 ESPN tomorrow night. Blues versus the Senators. Major League Baseball playoff action taking place today. Once again, who could have seen this coming? A low-scoring affair between the Tigers and the Guardians. That one is in the top of the sixth inning. It is tied at 1. T-Bone, our theme from yesterday was pitching and home runs. That has once again been the theme so far today, mostly on the pitching side of things, but also Cleveland with the home run. Who do you guys think ultimately comes out on top of this game here with the Guardians versus the Tigers?
I think you're going to see the Tigers put this away. I think they will find a way to somehow score a run. It's a race to 2, and they will win 2-1 and sweep the Guardians.
Yeah, I think I'll go Guardians. They find a way to stay alive. They did that all season to make the playoffs. So I think this one will force a Game 3, and Cleveland wins this one.
I like that side of things as well. I'll take the Guardians. The rest of the day, projecting out Padres versus the Cubs. Cubs won Game 1 of that series. Game 2 today. They're getting a little weird with this. They're going to start Andrew Kittredge as an opener / out-getter.
He's an out-getter.
If you listen to Craig Counsell,
right.
They're trying to flip the lineup. That's all they're doing here. They want Kittredge to get the first few righties, then they'll bring in a lefty. I actually think it's a pretty good move. I know T-Bone hates it, though. Who do you guys like in this one? Padres versus the Cubs?
I like the Cubs. Cubs end it.
I like Padres. They're overthinking it in Chicago.
I think the Padres will ultimately win this one as well. Red Sox versus the Yankees. Really fun game last night. A very well-pitched game last night. Do you guys like one of the sides?
Who's pitching for the Red Sox?
Bayo.
Is it Bayo?
He struggled a little bit of late.
Yeah, I think I'll go Yankees here. I don't think Yankees go down without a fight.
I'm going Red Sox. I think the bullpen for the Yankees blows it again.
Wow, that would be quite the storyline. I've got the Yankees in that one as well. And to finish things out, really the important series.
Dodgers. Don't even
Reds
ask.
versus the Dodgers.
Don't even
Everybody
ask.
likes the Dodgers in that one. For Alex and T-Bone, I'm BK. We'll talk to you guys tomorrow at 11 a.m. The Fast Lane's coming up next here on 101 ESPN.